Hey guys, tonight we descend into the quiet horror of something most history books politely skip over: the intimate, itchy, gasping reality of what it felt like to get sick in a medieval plague village. See, when people imagine the Black Death, they picture bodies in streets or weird bird-masked doctors. But few pause to think about what came before the death. The mornings when it started with nothing more than a scratchy throat. That soft detail, barely worth a mention now, could have been your death sentence in 1348. It doesn't scream. It whispers slowly, cruelly, and with breath that turns sour before your fate does. You probably wouldn't survive this, so before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your location and local time in the comments too. I love seeing where and when you're listening from. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge out of bed feeling off. Not deathly ill, just off. Your mouth tastes like copper, your joints ache like you've aged 40 years overnight, and someone might have stuffed cloth in your ears while you slept. The air smells faintly of hay, dung, and something darker that clings behind the goat shed. Outside, it's gray again, sky like wet wool, earth like soup. You scratch your shoulder. The itch doesn't go away. Down in the village square, a man is already screaming about demons in the well. He does that most mornings now. You're not sure if he's wrong. You consider whether to tell anyone you're feeling ill. But the unspoken truth of your time is this: admitting sickness is dangerous. If you whisper the wrong symptom, they'll lock your door from the outside and never unlock it again. So you pretend. You fetch water like normal, though your arms feel like bricks. You nod to the miller's wife, who looks thinner than last week. Her child has a rash, but she doesn't mention it. Nobody talks about illness anymore. Not directly, just sideways. Tired today, she says. Strange weather. You reply, and that's code enough. At home, the fire is already out, and you can't find the strength to relight it. Your breath rattles in your throat. The dog won't come near you. Historians still argue whether animals could sense plague before it bloomed, but even your mangy mutt has decided your lap is no longer safe. You lie down on your straw mattress and stare up at the dark beams of your roof. A spider inches across the rafters, slowly, like it's timing your breath. You think about food, but can't remember when you last felt hunger. Your stomach has curled up, either in fear or protest. You try sipping water, but even that feels heavy. You sweat, though it's not warm, then shiver, then sweat again. Your body is confused, and so are you. Outside, the world trudges on, boots clomp past, children cough, the blacksmith shouts something about a broken wheel. Normal, ordinary things. It all feels very far away from the war in your chest. You pull the thin wool blanket over your nose. It smells like mildew and sheep, still better than your breath. That's the first real sign. Your breath. It smells like something rotting in a cellar. You lick your lips. They crack. You run a finger over your gums, and a tooth wiggles slightly. That's not normal. But again, you say nothing. Instead, you light a candle, partly for comfort, partly so you can blame the smell on melting tallow if someone notices. You think about praying, but the words come out hollow, like someone else's voice. Besides, the priest has stopped making house calls unless you're already dying. He says his prayers are better spent on those who still have a chance. You watch the flickering candlelight dance across the wooden bowl on your table. Last week, it held porridge. This week, nothing. A fly lands in it anyway. You watch it for too long. The room tilts slightly when you stand. Your knees are water. You grip the table edge like you're 90. The air feels thick. Your thoughts slower than usual, like someone poured wax into your brain. There's a knock at the door. You freeze. No one knocks anymore, unless it's important. Or bad, or both. You don't answer right away. Just hold your breath and listen. A voice on the other side. You've seen Agnes. You exhale, just the tanner's boy. Looking for someone. You lie, not today. He grunts and walks off. You hear his feet drag. Either he's sick too, or just doesn't want to go home. Later that afternoon, You try to stand again, and your vision pulses, black at the edges, a thrum behind your eyes. You sit down before you fall. It takes you 10 minutes to tie your shoes. Not that you're going anywhere, but the act makes you feel like maybe you could. Your neighbor's rooster crows, even though the sun is already setting. Time has lost its usual rhythm. You're not sure if it's Wednesday or Sunday. Doesn't matter. You hear weeping from the house next door. Could be mourning, could be a tantrum. Hard to say. People cry for many reasons lately. You remember when you were a child and your grandmother told you that sickness used to be rare. Just the occasional fever, a childbirth gone wrong, a cough in winter. Now it feels like death is a regular visitor. Not dramatic, not loud, just consistent. Like a guest who always shows up uninvited and eats all your cheese. You lie down again. The mattress crunches beneath you. It's mostly straw, a few feathers, and more fleas than you'd like to think about. Historians say flea bites were often mistaken for early signs of the plague. Of course, they were also sometimes the actual cause, which is worse, dying from a bite or from your mistake about what the bite meant. Night falls, your candle dies with a soft sputter. You hear rats under the floorboards. You used to throw things at the walls when they got too loud. Now you just listen. They sound purposeful, confident, like they've been here before and know how this ends. Your throat is tighter now, like someone slowly pressing a thumb into it. Breathing is effort. Talking is impossible. You don't try. You curl up under your scratchy blanket and wait for the morning. If it comes, the irony is, the village still doesn't know you're sick. No one has diagnosed you. There is no test, no thermometer, no crisp Latin name for your condition. Just symptoms, just silence, and a growing sense of certainty that something inside you is quietly, methodically breaking. And even now, you cling to hope. Not because you believe in miracles, but because it's the only thing in your house not yet stolen by the rats. By morning, the hope has thinned like your breath. You wake to a hollow ache behind your eyes and the sensation that your skin has grown too tight for your bones. The room spins a little as you sit up. Pretending is what everyone does now. You pretend you're just tired, that your nose isn't bleeding, that your pillow isn't damp with sweat and drool. You swing your feet to the dirt floor, wincing as something sharp pricks your heel, probably a splinter. But it could be worse. In this village, everything always could be worse. You look around at your few possessions, a chipped bowl, an old wool tunic, a cracked comb, and a knife so blunt it's more sentimental than useful. Getting sick here isn't just painful, it's unaffordable. Illness means lost labor, and lost labor means lost bread. Literally, you won't eat today, maybe not tomorrow. You can't afford to be ill, and yet here you are, lungs fizzing, lips chapped, stomach hollow. You shuffle outside because the air in your hut feels like it's plotting against you. It's cloudy again. Surprise. The village doesn't really do sunshine anymore. It's like the weather caught wind of the plague and decided to participate. You pass the cooper's daughter drawing water from the well. She doesn't look up. You don't blame her. Eye contact is dangerous now. A glance could be a cry for help, and no one wants to answer. You used to nod to her. Once, you even flirted. Now she draws water like it's a death sentence and leaves without a word. You limp past the bakery, though there's no scent of bread. The baker died last week. His apprentice is trying to manage, but he mostly produces charcoal-flavored bricks. You'd complain if your tongue weren't swollen. A cow moans somewhere behind the smithy. It's probably sick too. Livestock have been dying off faster than people can salt them, which is a problem, because salted meat was the backup plan. No livestock, no food, no food, no immunity, no immunity. Well, you know the rest. Historians still argue whether the famine that preceded the Black Death made Europe more vulnerable or if it simply made people more cynical. Either way, the food shortage doesn't help your case. You're too weak to hold a shovel, let alone earn a meal. There's no charity left. The friar's storehouse was looted 2 nights ago. The rumor is he looted it himself. You turn back home slowly, each step heavier than the last. Your legs tremble, your knees wobble, and your feet feel like they've betrayed you. At your doorstep, you stop to breathe. Just breathing. It's not the kind of breath you notice unless it's in trouble. And yours is, it whistles slightly, like wind through a crack in the door. You try again. Still there. Inside, your hut smells like damp wool, spilled chamber pot, and fear. You sit down on your stool and try not to panic. You remember hearing once that boiled nettles can help with fevers? Or was it willow bark? You can't recall. The old healer in the woods would know. But she's either dead or avoiding everyone smartly. You've got a bit of dried mint and one onion. That'll have to do. You chew the mint leaves slowly, pretending the bitterness is medicine. You touch your forehead, burning, then cold, then burning again. Your body has become its own battlefield. One part thinks it's summer, the other insists it's December. You're stuck in the middle, sweating and shivering. The fever isn't the worst part. It's the knowing. The moment when you realize this isn't a fleeting illness, not a 3-day cold. It's the real thing. It's the whisper everyone's been ignoring. It's the word they avoid, but fear with a child's dread. Plague. You don't say it aloud. It might summon it faster. Superstition makes no sense. But then again, neither does disease. You glance at your armpits. Nothing. Not yet. You check your groin. Still clear. You breathe a shallow sigh of relief that immediately turns into a coughing fit. It rattles up from your belly like rocks tumbling down a well. Your ribs ache. Your throat scratches. You hear something tear. Was that your own voice? Outside, the wind howls. A shutter bangs. Somewhere, someone's goat bleats. Life stumbles forward, unbothered. You lie back and stare at the ceiling again. You count the wooden planks. You try to remember the last song you heard. You can't. You do remember the tanner's joke from last week. What's the only thing thinner than a gravedigger's patience, he said. The priest's excuses. You laugh then. Now it just hurts. You reach for your cup and find it empty. The effort to refill it feels monumental. You consider shouting for help, but who would come? You haven't seen your cousin in days. Your uncle's house burned down last month and no one helped him rebuild. He sleeps in the barn now. If he's still alive, maybe he left. Some people just vanish. One day they're coughing, the next, their doors shut from the outside and nobody speaks their name again. The shadows in your room lengthen. It's not yet night, but your vision has dimmed, or maybe your mind has. You dream with your eyes open, a memory. Your mother braiding your hair. She sings softly, but her mouth is sewn shut with a red thread. You blink, she's gone. Another dream. You're at a feast. Everyone's eating roasted pheasant. You reach for a drumstick and it turns into a rat. You blink again, still alone, still sick. The sound of footsteps jolts you. You listen closely, not hurried, not running, just steady, like someone with a job to do. A knock, you don't answer. Another knock, then the voice bred for trade. It's the miller's boy. His voice cracks. He's young, too young to be out bartering during a plague. But maybe they're all sick too. Maybe he's the last one left standing. No bread. You croak. Sick. Silence. Then you hear him back away, slowly, like he's afraid your words might float after him and stick to his skin. Your stomach cramps. You haven't eaten since. What day is it? Doesn't matter. Hunger and fever blend into the same dull ache. You drink water, warm, stagnant. It tastes like metal and moss, still better than nothing. You lean back again, your bones groaning. The floor creaks like it's mourning you. Historians still debate whether villages like yours ever had a chance, whether quarantine, herbs, and holy water did anything at all, whether humanity survived by luck, by prayer, or by sheer bloody stubbornness. All you know is that your stubbornness is starting to fray. You miss feeling bored. You miss chores. You miss the annoying chatter of your cousins. You even miss the tanner's jokes. Anything but this hollow waiting, this long, scratchy pause where your life used to be. The wind picks up again, and a gust slams your door shut. You don't get up. You can't. Instead, you wrap your blanket tighter and try to imagine a field. Green, sunny, filled with buttercups, no coughs, no rats, no bells, just silence. Not the suffocating silence of illness, but the peaceful kind. The kind that means everything is all right. You don't quite believe it, but you try. Your eyes flutter closed, then open again, then closed. The line between sleep and fever dream blurs. You float. A bird perches on your chest and whispers secrets. A fish crawls out of your bowl and asks to borrow your shoes. You smile, then wince. Even smiling hurts now. The fire has gone out. You didn't notice when. The cold settles in like a second skin. You shake not from chill, but from something deeper, something final, but you're still breathing. Barely. And so the story continues. You hear the footsteps before you see him slow, deliberate, too measured to be neighborly. A creak on the threshold, then a scrape, and then he enters. Tall, draped in oil-soaked leather that squeaks with every step, his silhouette framed by fog drifting in behind him, and then the mask, that grotesque beak of blackened leather, curling downward like a cursed ibis. The plague doctor, not a doctor, really, but a professional witness to death. He doesn't greet you or kneel. He just stands there like a crow that's lost interest in the corpse and inspects the furniture. He smells of vinegar and ash. The herbs stuffed in his mask lavender, mint, marjoram are meant to ward off the miasma, the bad air. Historians still argue whether this bizarre outfit did anything useful at all. Maybe it gave hope, or at least it disguised fear. He leans slightly, as if studying your color. He doesn't ask questions. Instead, he takes out a stick and uses it to poke your abdomen through the blanket. Gently, but with the detachment of someone stirring soup. You wonder if you're supposed to say something. You consider confessing that, yes, you have the pain behind the ears, the tightness in the chest, the tiny purple bruise near your ribs that keeps expanding like spilled wine, but you don't want to say the word. Saying it makes it real. The doctor mutters something you don't catch and opens a small pouch of dried herbs. He tosses a pinch into your fire pit, long cold, and makes a gesture vaguely resembling a blessing, or perhaps just boredom. He nods once, more to himself than to you, and walks toward your door. Boil everything. He rasps through the mask, which, given your lack of firewood, is a bit like telling a drowning man to build a boat, and then he's gone. You lie still for a while, letting the silence reassert itself. The room seems smaller now, tainted by his presence. You stare at the patch of floor where he stood, half expecting it to smolder. The plague doctor didn't leave medicine. He didn't offer prayers. He didn't tell you what to expect, because he knows. He's seen too many like you, shaky, sunken, halfway between sweating and freezing. You're not as patient. You're a statistic. He's already calculated your odds, and they weren't good enough for more than a glance. Later, you try to sit up and nearly vomit, not from nausea, but from the pressure in your head. It's like your brain is trying to push its way out. Your ears ring. Your neck stiffens. You remember someone saying something once when the neck tightens and the jaw clenches. Death's not far behind. Or maybe that was about horses. You can't recall. You reach for your chamber pot and miss. It clatters to the floor, splashes, and now the room smells worse than ever. You don't have the strength to clean it. You let it be. That's a phrase you've used a lot lately. Let it be. It covers everything. Rotting meat, let it be. The weeping girl next door, let her be. The dog chewing a human femur near the churchyard. Definitely let it be. The village has adopted the same philosophy. People avoid, ignore, and pretend. The baker's wife now sells thistles and burnt barley as healing cakes. The priest coughs through mass. The blacksmith whispers prayers to Saint Sebastian while hammering rusted nails. No one wants to admit it, but the plague doctor's arrival is confirmation. The sickness has breached the inner circle. It's no longer on the edges of town. It's here. It's you. You shift in your bed and gasp. The linen rubs against something tender. You lift your sleeve. There, near your elbow. A swelling, angry, red, warm to the touch. A bubo. The word tastes foreign and final. You touch it gently and wince. It's hard, like a knot in wet rope. The skin is stretched taut over it, shiny and furious. This is it, the sign no one can ignore. The beak-masked man probably saw it and said nothing, because there's nothing to say. Boil everything, he muttered. He might as well have said, start digging. You remember stories from a year ago, when the first whispers of the pestilence reached your village. People said it came from rats on ships, from cursed winds, from divine punishment for pride and gluttony. One friar claimed it was the Jews poisoning wells. That got several innocent people burned alive. They died screaming prayers to the same God they were accused of offending. Even now, some believe the disease is a test. Others think it's a purge. You don't care what it is. You just want the pain to stop. Your body has become unfamiliar. Every breath a riddle. Every heartbeat a drumbeat of dread. You sweat through your clothes and then freeze inside them. You try to drink water, but your throat closes around it like a trap. You wish someone would come, not to heal you. You've stopped believing in that, but just to sit nearby, to be human next to you, to prove you're not already a ghost, but no one comes, not even the dog. You drift in and out of awareness. Sometimes you hear bells, not church bells, not anymore. Plague bells, carried by those marked as infected, or by those too late. The sound is soft, but unmistakable. It's meant to warn, or maybe it's just a sad melody of what used to be. You count the rings like breaths. 1, 2, 3, then silence. Maybe they passed your door. Maybe they didn't see it shaking. Maybe they'll be back tomorrow with nails and a board. You dream again. This time, you're underwater, deep, dark, drifting. There's a light above, but every time you swim toward it, the surface moves farther away. You wake coughing, your pillow damp, your breath hitching. You've bitten your tongue in your sleep. Blood tastes like iron and memory. You don't have a mirror, but if you did, you're not sure you'd recognize what you've become. Your hands tremble. Your face burns. Your ribs are sharp against the thin blanket. You smell like salt and rot and wet earth. You think about the graveyard. It's full now. They've started digging double plots. A boy was buried yesterday with his grandmother. No prayers, just dirt. Historians still argue whether plague doctors were truly helpful or just theatrical symbols of desperation. Some think they were a deterrent to keep the healthy from helping the sick. Others argue their presence offered the illusion of order in a world spinning off its axis. You don't care which theory is right. You just remember the Birdman's eyes. Not cruel, not kind, just tired. You're tired, too. Bone tired, soul tired. The type of exhaustion that seeps into dreams and stains them gray. You think about the last time you laughed. Not a polite chuckle, but a real, belly-deep laugh. Was it last spring when the fair came through? Or before that? You can't recall. It's buried beneath the ache. The candle you lit earlier is now a stub. Its flame dances uncertainly, like it might give up soon. You watch it. The light flickers across the wooden beams. You imagine shadows whispering. You close your eyes and picture warm bread, clean sheets, a quiet morning without dread. You try to believe that somewhere, someone is healthy, someone is singing, someone is lighting a candle not for death, but for dinner. And then, as the candle gutters out, you are alone with the dark again, and the silence wraps around you like a second skin. By now, even the walls feel like they're holding their breath. You haven't moved in hours, and when you finally try, your body protests with the deep, slow ache of something ancient and hollowing out from within. The fever has wrapped around your limbs like ivy tight, creeping, patient. You've stopped sweating. That's not good. You remember someone saying that sweat meant your body was still trying to fight. Now, your skin is dry and hot like baked clay. You lie still, trying to keep your thoughts from unraveling, but they tug at the seams anyway. Your joints pulse with dull agony, and your tongue feels thick in your mouth. When you swallow, it's like dragging sand through a pipe. You can't tell if you're breathing faster or slower, only that each breath seems more effort than the last. The plague isn't always quick. Sometimes it moves like a procession, slow and ceremonial, parading its symptoms one by one, like a grim fashion show of medieval medicine's worst nightmares. And right now, you've reached the part where neighbors start suggesting things. It starts with a knock you almost didn't hear, then a creak of the door, opened without permission, and in steps Marta, midwife, widow, and resident expert in all things vaguely unpleasant. She squints at you like you've spoiled her soup just by existing. In her hand, a cloth bundle, damp and vaguely aromatic in a way that makes your stomach churn. You need balance in the humors, she says. Too much black bile? She doesn't wait for you to respond. You can't. Anyway, your voice abandoned you sometime during the night. She unwraps the cloth to reveal a leech, plump and wriggling, already hungry. Your skin crawls. She presses it to your inner elbow. It attaches with the enthusiasm of someone who knows their job. You groan softly, but Marta mistakes it for gratitude. Good, she mutters. We'll draw the poison out. Historians still argue whether leeching did anything at all during the plague years. Some claim it relieved pressure and reduced fever. Others say it only hastened death by weakening the patient further. You don't know which side is right. You only know you feel worse already. Marta moves on to the sheep dung. Yes, actual dung, mixed with rosemary and vinegar, slathered on a scrap of linen and pressed to your chest like it's supposed to convince death to look elsewhere. The smell alone might work. You gag once, then again, your body rejecting the stench as if it's been betrayed. Marta tuts. That means it's working. She stirs something thick in a wooden bowl and hands it to you with shaking hands. You sip because you're too weak to resist. It tastes like licorice, garlic, and failure. Outside, you hear laughter. Not joyous, not carefree, nervous, high-pitched. The kind people use when they're trying not to scream. Probably children, too young to understand or old enough to pretend. The village has started playing its games again, guessing who's next, who's already gone, and who might deserve it. Someone down the lane claims it's punishment from God. Someone else swears it's bad air from the swamp. The theories change every week, but the rules remain: don't help the sick, don't bury them too close, and if you feel warm, lie about it. Later, Marta leaves, mumbling a prayer under her breath that confuses several saints and ends with a cough. You're alone again. The leech long gone and the dung compressed cooling on your chest like an insult. You want to remove it, but it's stuck to your skin. You drift off briefly and wake to the sound of a bell. Not a church bell, those haven't rung for joy in months, but a small, hand-held one. The plague bell. It's rung when someone's been marked, declared untouchable, contagious, cursed. It used to terrify you. Now it just sounds like background noise. You wonder who it's for. Then you realize it's probably for you. The priest arrives soon after, breathing heavily and clutching a bundle of herbs like a shield. He doesn't cross the threshold, just peers in, eyes watery, face pale beneath his soot-smeared forehead. Have you confessed, he asks, voice barely audible. You shake your head. He says a few quick phrases, too fast to be personal, and flicks water in your general direction. It doesn't reach you. He clears his throat, mutters something about God's mercy, and retreats. You try to feel blessed. You don't. You remember being healthy, not vividly, more like a rumor from another life. You used to carry firewood, haul water, laugh with your cousin about whose turn it was to scrub the chamber pot. You remember dancing once. There was music and cider and a bonfire. The memory feels suspicious now, like something you stole. Your body has become a stranger. Everything it does now seems unrelated to you, this wheezing, this sweating, this ache in your ribs when you cough. You are a reluctant passenger, trapped in a collapsing carriage. You doze again. The fever dreams return. You are on a boat made of bread, drifting down a river of soup. The villagers line the banks, holding forks and laughing. One tosses a fish at you. It sticks to your chest. You wake, choking on your own spit, the sensation as real as stone. You roll to your side and vomit bile onto the floor. It smells like onions and regret. The candle has burned low again. You light another, but it flickers uncertainly. Your matches are running out. Firewood, too. You remember a time when you gather sticks with your siblings. Now they're gone. One buried, one vanished, and the youngest still coughing in her cradle. You haven't heard her cry in days. Someone pounds on your wall. A neighbor. You recognize the voice. It's old Jacob, the carpenter. Keep your filth in. He snarls. We don't want it here. You want to yell back, but your lungs won't cooperate. You wheeze, and that's all. Your illness is now a boundary, a crime, A reason for exile without leaving your bed. Quarantine, medieval style. Not signs or ropes, just fear, nails, and neighbors with pitchforks. Historians still debate whether communities truly turned on their own during plague waves. Some claim villages came together, helping one another survive. Others argue that panic made people crueler, more selfish, capable of atrocities. You know where your village stands. Kindness has become a luxury, rationed like flour or soap. You've stopped checking the bubo. It hurts. That's enough. You know it's bigger now. You can feel it pressing against your skin like it's trying to escape. You try to sip water again, but spill half of it down your chest. You're weaker than ever. Your vision blurs. The room spins. The light seems to breathe. You think of death, not with fear, but with a kind of numb curiosity. What will it feel like? Like falling. Like silence. Like sleep. You're not sure anymore. The wind outside has picked up. It rattles the shutters like a warning, or maybe a lullaby. You wrap yourself tighter in the blanket, pressing your arms to your chest. You close your eyes and whisper nothing, because there's nothing left to say, nothing left to ask for. You're not better, and tomorrow, you'll be worse. The outhouse is 23 slow, trembling steps from your door, and every single one feels like a betrayal. Your legs wobble like reeds in a storm, and you grip the edge of the door frame for balance as you step out into the gray, muddy air. The village smells worse today, richer, denser, like the earth itself is rotting along with its people. You've put this off for hours, hoping the fever might break or the cramps might pass, but your body refuses to play along. Your stomach lurches, gurgles, and warns you with unmistakable urgency. You hobble through muck and dead leaves toward the rickety lean-to that passes for sanitation. It's leaning even more than usual, sagging toward the forest like it wants to crawl away and die in peace. You open the warped door, duck inside, and lower yourself onto the wooden seat with the reverence of a monk taking a vow. A spider watches you from the beam above, utterly unimpressed. The stench is enough to knock thought out of your head. The hole below you is full, almost cheerful. If anything about that pit could be cheerful, buzzing with flies, maggots, and the unmistakable perfume of medieval health infrastructure. You gag reflexively, but hold it back. Your ribs are too sore to handle another spasm. The act itself is undignified, a sad blend of trembling hands, cold air against clammy skin, and the anxiety that you might not make it back. You're not sure if you feel better or worse afterward, but the effort leaves you dazed and hunched over, clutching the wall for balance. The seat creaks ominously beneath you, and you decide to risk standing. You manage it, barely. The return journey is worse. Your legs are weaker, your stomach still uneasy, and you're dizzy from the exertion. By the time you reach your door, your chest feels tight again. That slow, creeping pressure has returned like someone is sitting on your sternum, gradually leaning their full weight onto your lungs. You rest against the doorway, panting. Inside, it's somehow colder. The wind seeps in through the cracks, and the fire has long since died. You sit on the edge of your straw mattress, which crinkles and shifts under you. Alive with its usual symphony of lice and fleas, you try not to scratch. The bubo under your arm has grown. You can feel it now, even when you're still throbbing, fevered, hot. You press a hand to it, wince, and pull away. There's a knock on the door again. Lighter this time. You barely whisper, "Come in." It creaks open, and the face that peers inside is young, too young. A boy, maybe 12. His clothes are dirty, but whole. He has his hand over his mouth and a linen cloth tied around his nose. He holds out a small bundle. Bread, maybe. You nod. He sets it down on a stool and backs away. He doesn't speak, just looks at you with wide, silent eyes. Then he's gone. You don't know who sent him, or why. Maybe he came on his own. Maybe he won't be allowed back in his own house after this. You want to thank him, but you can't shout. Your voice is little more than a whisper in a hurricane. You chew slowly. The bread is tough and dry, more crust than crumb, but it stays down. Your stomach growls in gratitude and then regret. You clutch it as another wave of nausea curls through you like smoke. You lie down again, exhausted from the act of surviving breakfast. Outside, a dog barks, then another, then silence. You listen closely, hoping it means someone is walking by, but the silence that follows feels more permanent, more resigned. You drift in and out of sleep again. The dreams are darker now, less whimsical, more insistent. You're in the forest, barefoot, running, but the forest is made of arms and hands, reaching for you, grabbing. You wake sweating and cold. The dung compressed on your chest has dried into a crusty band of filth. You peel it off with effort, coughing as the smell hits you again. The skin beneath is red, raw, and angry. You touch your ribs. The pain is sharper there now, focused. Something inside you is preparing to break. Historians still argue whether outhouses like yours helped or harmed during plague outbreaks. Some say separating human waste reduced contamination. Others claim the concentration of disease in closed pits may have worsened outbreaks. Either way, the medieval approach to hygiene was not particularly advanced. You've heard tales of people burying their waste far from homes, or of fancy folk in cities paying boys to carry chamber pots into rivers. But here, in your village, the outhouse is just another place to suffer. The sun, if it even counts as such today, sinks slowly behind thick clouds. The light turns grayish-purple, the kind of color that makes shadows stretch longer than they should. You sip more water, each swallow a minor victory. Your body aches in strange places now, behind your knees, in your fingertips, under your eyes. You lie still and wait. For what? You're not sure. For the fever to break, for a sign, for someone to remember you. You think again about what the plague doctor said, boil everything. You haven't the strength to boil water, let alone linens. You couldn't even lift the pot if you wanted to. But you do think about what would happen if someone else caught what you have. The boy, maybe, the midwife, the priest, your neighbor. Bitter as he is, you don't want that. You don't want to be a source, a cause. You consider asking someone to board up your home for you. But that would mean admitting you're already gone. Instead, you wrap yourself tighter in the blanket and try to steady your breathing. You hum softly, a tune you can't name, a lullaby, maybe, something your mother used to hum when you had fevers as a child. Back then, it was just a fever. Nothing terminal, just sweat, soup, and a scolding. Now, it's different. It's heavier. Like every cough carries your soul a little further from your body. Another dream. You're in a field this time, full of tall grass and bees. You're running, but it's a pleasant run. Wind in your hair, light on your face. You see someone ahead of you. You can't make out their face, but they wait with open arms. You reach them just as the world turns inside out, and you wake to the taste of blood. You've bitten your lip, or your tongue, or maybe something deeper is bleeding. The copper taste won't go away. You roll onto your side, spitting into the straw, and groan. The sound is more animal than human. You don't recognize your own voice anymore. That's fine. You won't need it much longer. The door creaks again, but this time no one knocks. You hear soft voices, two of them, then a scraping sound, then nothing. You wait. You try to call out, but your throat catches. Your chest heaves with the effort. Nothing happens. You lie back, spent. Then you realize they've nailed the door shut. It's official now. You are the disease. Not a person, not a soul. Just a vector. A rotting unit in the village's desperate math. One sealed door equals 10 spared lives. Maybe you cry, but your tears are dry. You weep without water, sob without sound. You watch the candle flicker once more. You don't know how many you have left. The night comes faster now. Not just outside, but inside you, too. You feel it crawling in, weaving between your ribs and thoughts. You let it in. You're too tired to resist. There's a strange kind of peace that settles in once your door has been nailed shut from the outside. It isn't comfort, nothing about this is comfortable, but there's a finality to it. A quiet sort of agreement between you and the village you won't ask for help. and they won't offer it. You are now a sealed thing, like pickled fish or cursed relics. The banging of the hammer still echoes in your bones, and every time the wind rattles the boards, your body flinches as if expecting another nail, another confirmation that you are no longer part of the living world. You stare at the wall, eyes dry, mouth half open, breathing shallowly. The light filtering through the cracks is faint now, tinged with evening. You can't tell what day it is. You can't tell if you've slept, or simply blacked out and returned in pieces. The air smells of mold and sweat, and something faintly sweet, sweet in the way fruit smells right before it liquefies. You wonder briefly if that's your skin, softening at the edges. You try to move your legs. They respond, sort of, more twitch than command. Your left hand cramps when you clench it. Your right one doesn't respond at all. That's new. That's not good. You whisper to it, as if that might help. Move. Nothing. You try again. Move. Still nothing. Your hand rests like a forgotten tool, useless and heavy. You laugh once dry, sharp, and then cough until your head pounds. You close your eyes. You open them again, startled by how dark it's already become. A rat scuttles across the floor, bold now, unafraid of your presence. It sniffs the dropped crust of bread by the stool and drags it into the shadows, like a prize. You remember when rats used to make you uneasy. Now they're just fellow survivors, better at this than you. Historians still debate the exact role of rats in the spread of the plague. Some say they were innocent scapegoats, while others claim they were the disease's most devoted courier. Either way, the little beast seems healthier than you. It pauses once, looking back at you, and you're almost sure it pities you. You blink, the rat vanishes. Your mind wanders, skipping like stones across memories. You're in the village square. There's music, people dancing, clapping, the smell of roasted onions in the air. Then you're at the river, toes in the mud, skipping stones with your brother. Then your brother's face blurs, and the river turns black. You jolt back to the present with a sharp inhale. You've soiled yourself. You didn't feel it happen. The shame is distant, like it's happening to someone else. You shift slightly, and the dampness spreads. You want to clean it, but your body mutinies. Moving feels like a request denied. The candle stub on your table has melted into a puddle of wax. You try to reach for another, but your fingers fumble. Your hand trembles as if it belongs to a much older person. Eventually, you manage to nudge a new candle into your palm, clumsily knock it into the holder, and light it with a last match. The flame stutters to life, throwing long shadows against the walls. You watch the shadows flicker and wonder if they're starting to move on their own. You see a face in one of them. Not a real face, just a shape. But you're so tired that even imagination has started to bleed into reality. You smile faintly at the shadow. Stay, you whisper. I could use the company. The light makes you feel a little better. Not physically, your fever rages on, but mentally. There's something about fire that insists on life. Even now, you lean toward it, trying to soak in its warmth, its defiance. You whisper stories to it, not long ones, just fragments. A joke the smith once told, a verse from a hymn, a childhood rhyme about a goose who wore boots. You're not sure why. Maybe you want the fire to remember, just in case you can't. From the far corner, you hear a scratching. Not the rat this time. Something higher, a faint rustling, then a thump. You squint toward the ceiling. Above you, behind the beams, a bird has nested. You'd forgotten about that. It came weeks ago, you think. A blackbird or a crow, something dark. You haven't heard it in days. Now, it stirs. You listen. A soft coo, not quite song, not quite warning, just a presence. Still here, you whisper. The bird makes a sound like agreement. You shift your gaze to the door. The sliver of light beneath it has faded entirely. It's night now, fully, completely. Your breath fogs faintly in the air. You think about the priest, about his trembling voice as he tried to deliver final rites without stepping inside. You try to remember the prayers he said. You can't. All that comes is a nursery rhyme. You murmur it instead, too fevered to be embarrassed. Sleep comes, then doesn't. You drift to the edge, then jerk back awake. Your legs cramp. Your belly twists. You close your eyes and see fire. You open them and see only the candle. You close them again. The fire is there still. You wonder if that means something. You wonder if the fever has caught fire in your blood. You try to count your heartbeats, but they're uneven. Some quick, some slow, some forgotten entirely. You whisper to yourself names, people, places, as if naming them will keep them real. Your mother, the tanner's dog, the hill behind the well, the soft bread your sister made once. You cling to these fragments, each one like a plank in a wrecked ship. If you can hold enough, maybe you won't sink. You laugh at the idea. You cough blood. It stains the blanket. You try to shift again. A mistake. Pain blooms in your back, your side, your gut. Your skin feels too thin, too sensitive, like even the air is scraping it raw. You imagine peeling yourself out of your own body, stepping away from the illness like it's a shirt you can toss in the fire. You picture your soul rising, light and clean, but then the cramp returns and pulls you back. This body, this flailing body, it isn't done with you yet. A voice outside, distant, muffled, someone saying your name. Once, then again. You try to answer, but your throat catches. The name comes again, softer now. Not a call, a memory. You realize you're hearing it in your own head. You are your last visitor. You try to breathe slower, deeper, but each inhale is shallower than the last. You feel your lips crack with dryness. Your tongue sticks to your teeth. You close your eyes and imagine drinking from the river. Cold water, flowing, clean. Your body twitches in response. A pitiful gesture of longing. The candle gutters. It won't last much longer. Neither will you. You close your eyes and imagine the door opening, not to a villager, not to the doctor, not even to Marta, just to air, to birdsong, to life. You imagine stepping through it, barefoot, toward a place where no one coughs, no one fears, and the sky is always blue. Then the cough comes again, sharp and final. You curl into yourself and hold on. Word count 1200. At some point in the night, though night and day no longer hold clear distinction for you, a low voice murmurs outside your door. Not words exactly, just the rise and fall of sound, like someone praying or reciting something ancient. You barely register it, your mind floating somewhere between sleep and death, caught in that delicate thread where dreams don't end and memories don't begin. You catch fragments, deliver us, and cleanse this house, and then silence. No knocking, no candlelight, just the whisper of wind against wooden boards and the faint scratching of rats under the floor. Busy, tireless, efficient. They sound healthier than you do. It's strange how much comfort you've begun to take in small, persistent sounds. The creak of the roof beam, the drip from the corner where rain sneaks in, the flutter of the bird still nesting overhead, rustling its wings with gentle impatience. These are your companions now, not family, not friends, not even the priest. Just the architecture of abandonment and the quiet background noise of things that live simply because they don't know not to. You shift your weight again, barely able to move more than your neck and one good shoulder. Every part of your body below your waist pulses with a dull heat, and your armpits now feel like they've swallowed fire. You don't check the buboes anymore. They're part of you now, like extra organs that pulse in defiance of nature. Touching them only brings more pain, and you've long run out of clean cloth to wrap them. The last rag you used is now stiff with pus and dried blood, lying folded near your feet like a cruel joke. You keep meaning to throw it into the fire pit, but fire is a memory, and movement is a myth. You spend much of the time watching the candle, imagining it as a sun, your last sun. The wax drips like time, each drop a tiny betrayal. Your mind, once sharp and anxious, now floats. You see things shapes, mostly, People from years ago standing in corners, saying nothing, only watching. Your grandmother stands in the corner near the wall. She died when you were 7. But there she is, arms crossed, the look of disapproval familiar. She doesn't speak. You don't want her to. There's a girl, too. Someone you once kissed in a hayloft during midsummer. Her hands are covered in soot, but her smile is kind. They're not real, but you don't send them away. They keep the fever from swallowing you whole. Historians still debate what level of consciousness plague victims retained in their final days. Some say the brain overheats and burns itself out in a frenzy of hallucination. Others suggest there's a kind of forced clarity, a narrowing of perception that sharpens details into unbearable sharpness. You feel like both might be true. You see every crack in your ceiling, every splinter on the edge of the stool, but you also see people who aren't there, feel things that don't touch you, and drift through memories that feel like borrowed shoes. Your body has begun to betray its structure. Your limbs swell in some places, shrink in others. Your breath smells sweet now, like rotten fruit. You notice it when you turn your head slightly, and the scent wafts past your nose. You used to flinch at that smell on others. Now it's yours. Your fingernails are darkening. The skin beneath your toes feels tight, like it might split. The disease is sculpting you from the inside, carving away the person you were, and replacing it with something between corpse and legend. You wonder if anyone will remember you. You try to recall the sound of your own voice and fail. There's a scratching again. The bird. The rat. You don't know. You call out, but it's just a whisper, barely more than breath. The room feels smaller now, like the walls have crept inward. The air is heavier. You wonder if the house will collapse when you die, just crumble in on itself like a shell without its snail. You picture the roof sagging, the beams falling, your body quietly hidden in the rubble. A mercy. Maybe. No one would have to carry you. You blink and suddenly it's morning. Pale light leaks through the slats. You didn't expect to see it again. The bird overhead stirs. Its wings rustle, and for a moment, the room feels alive. You savor it. That fleeting pulse of presence. You speak to the bird softly. Go, you say. Get out while you can. It ignores you. Of course it does. It has a nest here, a purpose. You no longer do. You shift again. This time not from pain, but from instinct. Some part of you remembers how to survive. You take a sip of water still warm, still stale, and chew the last crumb of bread. You swallow slowly, feeling it move through your body like gravel. You close your eyes. You dream again. A field, sunlight, no pain. You are running, but not from anything, just running. You wake with tears on your cheeks. Outside, footsteps, not near your door, but somewhere down the lane. You hear voices, a cart rolling over mud, a dog barking. Life continues. Without you, it's not cruel, just indifferent. The village does not stop because you're dying. It never has. It won't. You're just another sealed door now. Another quiet hut with a fading candle. You feel something in your chest, a tightening. Not of fear, but of acceptance. The worst has already arrived. Everything now is just echo. You think about your name. You say it aloud, softly. It doesn't sound like yours anymore. Just a word. You try saying your mother's name. That one still feels warm. You whisper it again. She's not here, but somehow the room feels less empty when you do. The candle has almost burned out. You watch it closely, unsure why it matters. When it goes, you will be in the dark again. Not metaphorical dark. Real, suffocating dark. You wonder what happens after the candle. Do you drift? Do you dream? Does your breath slow until it forgets to begin again? You hear the bell again, farther off this time. Faint, distant, someone else, another sealed door. You feel sorry for them. Briefly, then you remember you don't have the energy for pity. You lie back again, your breath shallow, your fingers twitch. You smile faintly. The bird sings once high, sharp, sweet. You let the sound fill you. One last note, one last breath, one last flicker. It begins with denial. Again, the villagers always deny it. They say it's not the plague this time, just a seasonal fever, or bad air from the marsh, or a punishment meant only for the gluttonous. But now, the coughing is everywhere, thin, dry, hacking so common it's woven into the rhythm of daily life. Like the clatter of wooden shoes or the toll of the evening bell, you lie in your bed, a monument to what no one wants to talk about, and hear it echo through the village like a grim chorus. Children coughing in alleyways, old men coughing in barns, women coughing into their aprons and pretending it's dust. You've become familiar with the many lies people tell when death draws near. It's not just denial, it's survival. To name it is to call it closer, so they don't name it. They whisper instead, invent new words, and speak in riddles. She's taken ill. They say, he's resting a little more than usual. Something's going around. No one says plague, not out loud, not yet. But inside your body, there's no room left for euphemism. You're not a little tired. You're not just warm. You are rotting, slowly, exquisitely, from the inside out. The swelling in your groin has become unbearable, a knot of fire that pulses with every heartbeat. You tried not to touch it for days, hoping ignorance might be a kind of cure, but now it forces itself into your awareness, like a brand pressed against your flesh. Your armpits are no better tender, bloated, wet with something you don't want to name. The smell has shifted again, less like sweat, more like decay, a sweet, thick stench that wraps itself around you and refuses to let go. Even the rats keep their distance now. That tells you everything. You try to keep your mind elsewhere. You count the ceiling beams. Again, you trace the outline of the door with your eyes. You whisper prayers you don't believe in. The same 3 lines, over and over. Like a lullaby no one sings anymore. Keep me. Watch me. Forgive me. Sometimes, your mind wanders back to when this all began. You remember the first death in the village. An old man, unliked, barely noticed. He coughed once in the square, fell over, and never stood again. That was weeks ago, or months. Time has collapsed into a single, fevered afternoon. The village tried to pretend. At first, they buried him quickly, muttered something about old bones and damp winters. But then more followed, and more. And now the burials happen at dusk, or not at all. Sometimes, people just vanish, and their names are never said again. The boy who brought you bread never returned. You wonder what became of him. Maybe he got sick. Maybe his family boarded him inside the same way yours did to you. Maybe he lived, but avoided your house like a ghost. You wouldn't blame him. You haven't heard your name spoken in days, or footsteps near your door, or anything beyond the steady hush of the wind and the occasional, pitiful howl of a distant dog. Your world has shrunk to the size of a room and the weight of your own body. You no longer belong to the village. You're its secret now, its buried shame, its unfinished sentence. Historians still argue how long the average person lasted once the symptoms took root. Some say days, others say hours. Some live long enough to watch their family die one by one. You are somewhere in between, not dying quickly enough to escape the pain, not living long enough to matter. You exist in that middle space, suspended between the last breath and the next, stretched thin like wax dripping down a candle. Every moment is both too long and not long enough. The fever comes in waves. Sometimes you're lucid enough to think, to remember, to ache with longing for clean sheets and fresh air. Other times, your body vibrates with heat, and the world turns liquid. You speak to people who aren't there. You hear music no one plays. You think you see lights dancing on the wall, though the candle has long since burned out. You talk to God, sometimes, not to ask for anything, just to fill the silence. You tell him about the field behind your cottage, the way the daisies would bloom before the frost came. You tell him about the sound of bread crust cracking when pulled from the fire. You tell him about the way your sister used to hum when she braided her hair. You don't ask him to save you. You just want someone to know you were here. The door remains shut. The boards hold. No one checks. No one speaks. You think, occasionally, about the idea of miracles. Not the big ones, no angel bursting through the ceiling with trumpet blasts, but small ones. A bowl of hot soup, a hand on your forehead, someone sitting beside you, just breathing. But your miracles have all dried up. Even hope has curled into a corner and gone quiet. The light changes again. Day, night, day, night, there's no rhythm anymore. You sleep when the pain lets you. You wake when the dreams get too loud. You drink water from a clay cup that now smells of mildew. You eat nothing. You have nothing left to eat. Your body begins to consume itself. Your arms thin. Your cheeks hollow. Your breath rasps like an old bellows. And through it all, the silence deepens. One afternoon, maybe it's morning. Maybe dusk, you hear footsteps. Slow, measured, someone outside. Then a knock, soft, hesitant. You try to respond, but your voice catches in your throat. You cough instead. A wet, rattling sound. There is no second knock, just silence. Then retreating steps. Whoever it was, they heard enough. You close your eyes and imagine them pausing, debating whether to help, then walking away. The village knows what you are, and what you are is already gone. You think of fire again, not as warmth, but as release. People have burned their own homes before, when sickness got too loud. You've heard stories, whole huts going up in flame, with the sick inside, whispered about like ghost tales around the market. You wonder if your neighbors are debating it now. Whether they look at your house and see a pile of kindling, you hope they wait until you're gone, or until the rain comes. You whisper to the bird in the rafters, though it hasn't made a sound in days. You assume it's dead, but you speak to it anyway. We lasted longer than they thought, you say. Didn't we no answer? But the silence doesn't feel empty, just tired. The floor beneath your bed creaks. The wind whistles through the cracks. Your body is too heavy to move, but your thoughts flutter like moths against the walls of your skull. You want to write something down, leave a message, but there's no ink, no paper, no strength. So you write in your head, each word etched into memory, hoping someone will find it later, hoping that, maybe, stories can linger longer than skin. The mattress under you has changed. At first, it was just lumpy. Now, it feels like it's rotting along with you. The straw has collapsed in places and shifted in others, and when you move even slightly, it lets out a damp, exhausted sigh as if it, too, has grown weary of bearing your weight. You no longer notice the itch of fleas unless one bites your eyelid or burrows into the raw skin behind your ear. It's strange how the body adapts, how pain stops registering after a certain threshold is crossed. What remains isn't pain, it's erosion. You are eroding, slowly, patiently, like a stone left in a stream bed, worn thinner every hour. The fever is still there, but now it feels like a background hum instead of a storm. You've grown used to the boiling blood, the spinning ceiling, the dizziness that comes with sitting up too fast. What's harder to get used to is the stillness. The world outside moves on, but you remain stuck like time has forgotten to collect you. You find yourself thinking about your mattress more than you should, about how it used to be stuffed with dry hay that crunched softly when you lay down, how your mother once sewed a patch into the corner with thread she'd dyed herself. You think of how proud she was of that little square of blue. You wonder where she is now, buried in the overcrowded churchyard, or lost somewhere in the woods beyond town, one of the unlucky ones who wandered out and never came back. There was a time when death was something people witnessed together, a family gathering, a priest, a few whispered prayers. Now, death is something you do alone, in the dark, in silence. You shift slightly and wince. The movement has torn the fragile skin at the back of your leg, where a sore has opened and refused to close. The bedding sticks to it, damp and stubborn. You tug it loose slowly, biting your lip until the copper taste of blood returns. You don't bother trying to clean it. There's nothing left that's clean. Your clothes haven't been washed in weeks. The water in your jug is cloudy with particles you no longer care to identify. The cup you drink from smells of sour milk and dust. You still sip from it. It's either that or nothing. A distant bell rings. Not the large one. Not the church. It's been silent for weeks, but a smaller one, the handbell, the one carried by those who walk the village paths, warning of the infected, it tolls 5 times. Then silence. 5 knocks. 5 names. 5 doors. You wonder if you're number 6. You wonder if the bell ringer thinks you've already gone, or if they simply don't want to be the one to open your door and see what's left. Historians still argue about the accuracy of medieval death counts. Records were inconsistent. People vanished. Families died out entirely. Sometimes villages were left so empty no one remained to write anything down. You wonder if anyone will bother counting you, if someone will scratch your name into a list, or if you'll simply become one more, a figure, a rumor, a whisper passed between merchants as they trade boiled beans for goat skins. The itch behind your ear returns. You try to scratch, but miss, your hand flopping uselessly against the side of your head. Your arm is going. The muscles have wasted away to the point where motion feels like swimming through syrup. You can still move your fingers, but they tremble constantly. You spend whole hours staring at them, watching the tremors like they're someone else's. Sometimes they stop. That frightens you more than when they start. You think again of the rat, the one that stole your bread. You haven't seen it in 2 days. Maybe it died. Maybe it found a better house. Either way, its absence feels strange. You hadn't realized how much comfort you took in its tiny sounds, its foraging, its squeaking, the scratch of claws on wood. You speak to it anyway, in case it's listening from the shadows. Still here, you whisper, still trying. In the late afternoon, the light grows golden for just a moment. One rare flare of color in a week of gray. It filters through the cracks and lands on your foot, making your pale skin glow faintly. You watch it like a miracle. For 20 seconds, maybe less, the world looks almost holy. Then the clouds roll back in, and the gold becomes slate once again. You don't mind. You remember it. That's enough. Your stomach has stopped growling. That's not a good sign. Hunger has faded into absence. Your body has resigned itself to consumption its own, not food's. You think of how many people starved in the years before the plague, how they ate bark, sawdust, stray dogs. You still remember the old woman who made soup from boiled rags and onion peels? She was laughed at then, not now. Now she'd be called resourceful, if she's still alive. The mattress sags harder beneath you. You wonder if it's finally giving out, or if your weight has simply become too much in one spot. You imagine it splitting in half, sending you tumbling to the floor. You smile faintly. It would be the most dramatic thing that's happened in days. But the mattress holds, barely, loyal to the end. You think again about burials, about how the graveyard filled up faster than anyone expected, how bodies began to pile, how carts clattered through town collecting the dead. There was a man with a bad leg who volunteered to drive one, said he wasn't afraid of death. 2 weeks later, he was in the cart himself. They say he went stiff in the middle of his route, and the horse dragged his corpse half a mile before anyone noticed. You think of him now and wonder if he got across, or just a pit. The air in the room is still. It doesn't smell like anything anymore, or maybe your nose has stopped caring. You hear your heart beating sometimes, not the thump, but the soft swoosh behind your ears, like waves against a dock. It's a strange comfort. As long as there's that sound, you're still here, still pulsing, still something. The bird in the rafters gives one last chirp, then nothing. You don't know if it's a goodbye or a hiccup, but you whisper to it just in case. Thank you, you say. You were the only one who stayed. Your legs no longer move. That's official now. You tried this morning, or what you thought was morning. You told your left foot to wiggle, and it simply ignored you. The right one followed. Your torso is next. Probably. You wonder what it feels like when your lungs give up. Will it hurt, or will you simply exhale and forget to inhale again? The candle flickers again. You thought it was done days ago, but there was another tucked behind the jug. You must have lit it in a fevered haze. It's nearly gone now. The wax has formed a tiny crater around the wick, which sputters like it's tired too. You lean toward it, warming your hands in the faint glow. Your skin is pale, the veins more visible now. like blue rivers beneath ice. You murmur to yourself again, not prayers, just names. Names of people you loved, people you remember, people you wanted to see again. You don't say your own name. That one doesn't belong to you anymore. That one belongs to the person who walked, worked, laughed, lived, not to this quiet shape in a crumbling bed, wrapped in a fever and a fading wick. You close your eyes, not to sleep, but to remember. You see the field, the daisies, the sky. The air smells clean. Your hands are strong. Your mother calls from a distance, and for just a moment, you run. The bedding is soaked again, not with sweat this time. Not entirely. Some corner of your consciousness, the part that still keeps track of such things, recognizes what it is. Your body, losing discipline, the organs no longer cooperate, and the muscles that once obeyed the smallest signal from your mind have forgotten how to respond. You lie in it, too tired to shift away, too numb to feel the shame. A week ago, you might have cried over it, might have tried to hide it, clean it, bury it in straw, but today, it's just one more layer of discomfort in a world that's unraveling around you. The straw pokes through the blanket in odd places now, jabbing your spine and ribs, and still you don't move. Not because you've made peace with stillness, but because it's no longer your choice. You are an object now, not yet corpse, not still person, just a soft, slow collapse happening under a thatched roof. No one plans to check again. There's a small hole in the wall near the corner, between two beams. You've stared at it so long, you've named it the spot. Sometimes, when your eyes blur from fever, you imagine you can see through it. Fields, roads, the backs of passing villagers. You know this isn't real, but you let it be. The spot is your window, your escape. When the pain gets sharp, when your thoughts get tangled in dread, you look there and imagine you're elsewhere, walking, not sick, not forgotten. Sometimes the fantasy works for almost a minute, and then the cough comes back loud, dry, splintering you open from the inside, and the spot becomes just a crack in a rotting wall again. The cough brings blood now. Not a lot, not a fountain, just a trace dark, sticky, clinging to your tongue and teeth, bitter like spoiled berries. You don't bother wiping it away. You've already ruined every cloth in the hut. One remains a linen square that belonged to your father. You keep it folded near your head, untouched, clean, not out of sentiment, but superstition. As long as that last square stays white, you tell yourself, maybe you won't disappear entirely. You hear footsteps again, passing this time, not stopping, not knocking, just the familiar rhythm of someone making their way through mud, skirt or tunic, dragging through puddles. You want to call out. You try. Your voice comes as a rasp. Not a word. Not even a sound. Really. Just air, shaped by longing. Whoever it is keeps walking. You picture their back, their shoulders hunched, their basket half full of roots or crusts. They don't look at your door. You don't blame them. Historians still debate how aware plague victims were of the world around them in their final days. Some sources speak of lucidity, of final confessions and whispered last wishes. Others speak of days-long deliriums, hallucinations, silence. You feel like both at once. Moments of piercing clarity, surrounded by long stretches of something thick and colorless. Your mind drifts, like a leaf caught in a slow current. You don't fight it. Let it take you. You dream, not of fire or birds or fields this time, but of stone. Cold stone. You walk barefoot across it. A monastery corridor. Endless. Echoing. Your footsteps are soundless, and the candles on the walls flicker as you pass, though there's no wind. At the end of the hallway is a door. You open it. Inside your hut, you're lying in bed, just like now, but younger, stronger, the version of yourself who still had questions. You smile at them. They don't see you. You close the door. When you wake again, the candle is finally out. The air is dark, not just dim. You hold your breath and listen. Nothing. No wind. No voices. No bird. No rats. It is a silence so deep it makes your ears ring. You wonder if this is what death sounds like. Then, faintly water, dripping. Somewhere outside, maybe the corner of the roof, a leak. You count the drops, 1, 2, 3, each one a slow, metallic echo through the quiet. It calms you more than prayer ever did. You try to sit up, you fail. Your body shakes with the effort, your elbows give out. You collapse back, wheezing. That was your last attempt. You know it now. There won't be another. You shift your eyes to the ceiling and commit it to memory the way the beams cross like ribs, the discoloration near the corner, the spiderweb fluttering when the wind sneaks through. You name them. You name everything. The crack, the stool, the spoon you dropped 4 days ago. Naming is the only power you have left. It feels like claiming territory, like leaving behind a map. You hope someone finds it. You think of Marta. You wonder if she still makes her rounds, if her hands still carry leeches and poultices and the smell of damp herbs. You think of the priest, if he still paces outside doors, muttering absolutions into his sleeves, hoping the wind carries them inside. You think of your sister, her voice like a bell, laughing through a mouthful of honey bread. These thoughts don't make you sad anymore. They just are, soft, cool stones in the streambed of your mind. You start to lose feeling in your left cheek. A strange numbness creeps along your jaw, and your lips go slack. You try to speak again, just for yourself, to see if your mouth still works. A moan escapes low, guttural, alien. It frightens you for a moment. Then it passes. You murmur something, anything, just to hear a human sound again. Here, you say, still here. A drop of water falls through the roof and lands on your forehead. You almost laugh. The timing is too perfect. It rolls down the bridge of your nose, past your lips. You lick it. Rain, cold, clean, miraculous. You whisper thanks not to God, not to saints, just to the rain itself. Time folds. Minutes become hours, or the other way around. You see faces, some familiar, some invented. They come and go like mist. Some smile, some just watch. One girl sings. You try to hum along. You think you remember the tune. It's from your childhood. You think, or from last week. Everything overlaps now. Your fingers twitch, unbidden. The last candle was gone hours ago, yet you see light, not bright, just a glow, like sunrise behind closed eyes. You keep them shut. You don't want to lose it. It stays, warm, steady. Then a breeze gentle, carrying the scent of mint. The herbs Marta brought, the ones she stuffed into her bag between prayers and leeches, or just a memory. You try to speak one last time, not a word, just a sound. The kind you make when you're very young or very old and all language has left you. It catches in your throat and shudders there. Then it's gone. You exhale and wait. You expect something, a whisper, a shift, a final sign, but there's just quiet and then peace. Not the dramatic kind, no light, no angels, no music, just a loosening, a sigh that doesn't need to become an inhale, a release that feels like water slipping through fingers. Your last thought is not of fear, it's of the daisies in that summer field, gently nodding in the wind. When the villagers finally dare to approach your door again, it is not out of mercy or mourning, but necessity, the smell. That's how it always begins. First, someone notices that the wind is wrong when they walk past. Then, perhaps a wife mentions to her husband that there's a thickness in the air around your hut, a scent that clings to the nostrils and haunts the bread dough. By the time 3 days have passed with no sound, no candlelight, and the stink growing more assertive, it's no longer a question. They gather quietly in the early morning, cloaks pulled high, sleeves over mouths, no priest, no doctor, just the tanner, the cooper's son, and old Jacob with a limp. They come with a cart and gloves made from scraps of leather, and boards already cut to fit your door. They do not speak, not because they are solemn, but because speech makes it real, and none of them want to be the one to say it you're gone. They pry open the boards with iron hooks, standing back as the air exhales outward in a warm, sour gust. One of them coughs, involuntarily, and is immediately glared at by the others. Inside, it's dark, not night dark, but womb dark, thick, still. They wait, half expecting something to move, to groan, to prove them wrong, but the silence holds. One steps inside and covers his mouth with the hem of his sleeve. "Here," he says quietly. "It's enough." The others nod and begin the process. They do not look at your face. Not really. A quick glance is all. The swollen skin, the dried trails from the eyes and mouth, the peculiar angle of the arm. The marks of the plague are familiar to them now, unmistakable. They work fast, like men unbuckling fate. They wrap you in your blanket, the one still sticky with fever and filth, because cloth is quicker than reverence and cheaper than coffins. Your mattress is left behind. No one wants it. It'll be burned later, perhaps, or maybe just left for the rats. You are bundled like firewood, lowered gently enough onto the cart. A single clink sounds when your heel strikes the edge. No one comments. The wheels creak as they push you toward the edge of the village. No prayers, no goodbyes. Just a slow, rumbling resignation and the hollow thud of each step through mud. The path to the burial pit winds between rows of huts, most shuttered, some completely abandoned. A dog watches from beneath a collapsed fence. Its ribs show. It does not bark. It simply watches you pass, as if to confirm that your exit matches what it's seen again and again. The pit itself lies behind the chapel, but not in the consecrated ground. That area is full. Yours is a mass trench, deep, wet, anonymous. It smells of ash and rain, and the long, slow digestion of human hope. You are not the first today. You are not the last. The cart is tipped gently, and you roll in. There's a dull sound as you land, not a thump, but more of a sigh. Another body follows, then another. They do not fill the pit immediately. It must wait. More will come, and digging is hard work. The gravedigger marks the edge with a piece of red cloth tied to a stick, waving slightly in the breeze. That's your gravestone. That bit of flutter. That mute, tattered flag whispering, "Here, beneath this wind, lies another one." Historians still argue about medieval burial practices, how deeply people were buried, how soon, whether rites were given or denied, based on status or contagion. What's certain is that many were buried quickly, and many without names. You are one of them, a body among bodies, a name remembered perhaps for a week, or a day, or not at all. Your hut will be passed by with more certainty now. The children who play near the well will point and whisper, not because they knew you, but because the story of your end gives the others something to fear and survive. You've become a lesson, not a loss. Back in the village, the door's nailed shut again, this time from the outside. A smear of pitch seals the cracks. The cooper's son scratches an X into the wood with his knife and mutters something about how it's spreading faster now. No one disagrees. Your name isn't spoken. Instead, they speak of that house or the one by the old apple tree. People nod. Everyone understands. The story doesn't need telling anymore. It's written in the air. That night, it rains. Not a storm. Just a steady, soaking drizzle that drips into the pit and darkens the edges of the mound. It washes some of the dirt from the bodies, loosens the cloth around a few faces. No one is there to notice. The rain continues. It carries with it the scent of wet earth and distant smoke, and maybe just faintly the ghost of the herbs Marta used to carry. Mint, rosemary, rue. The field you dreamed of becomes soaked in your absence. You're no longer in pain. You're no longer anything. The suffering, the silence, the solitude, it all recedes now like a tide pulling away from shore. Your body remains, decomposing quietly in a common grave, but the part of you that mattered, your memories, your fears, your voice has moved elsewhere, not upward, not downward, just elsewhere. You do not hover. You do not watch. You are not a ghost. You are part of the great forgetting, the natural unwinding of one thread in the vast woven tapestry of everything that ever was. The next day, a child walks past your hut and holds her breath. She's been told that the smell is dangerous, that the air might still be bad. She doesn't understand what that means, but she obeys. Children often do. When fear is louder than curiosity, she skips past and hums a tune. It's the same one you hummed, once, to yourself during the final night. She doesn't know this. She thinks she made it up. The boy who brought you bread has a cough now. Light, for now. His mother tells him to stay inside, but she also tells him to fetch water. There's always something more important than safety. He carries the bucket with both hands and pauses once by the burial pit, staring at the red cloth fluttering in the breeze. He doesn't know which body was yours. He only remembers the smell when he opened your door. He thinks he sees the bird from your rafters sitting on the fence nearby. It flies off before he can check. Days pass, then weeks. The pit is filled, covered, smoothed with ash and lime. A few wildflowers grow along the edges, yellow, mostly. People say that means something. Marta is gone now. The priest coughs through every sermon. No one asks questions anymore. They just survive. What's left of your hut is eventually pulled down. The boards are repurposed for another wall, another roof, somewhere else in the village. The mattress is burned. Your blanket is cut into rags. The spot in the wall, your window to the world, is patched with clay. No one remembers it was ever there. And yet, the daisy field still blooms. Not in town, but beyond the hill, where the air moves freer and no bells toll. It waits quietly, unchanged. The same daisies nod in the breeze. The same sun warms their petals. Someone else will find it, lie there, close their eyes, and maybe, just maybe, hear the faint echo of a breath that once asked, still here. There's a moment in the weeks that follow when the village almost begins to pretend again. Not quite hope is still too expensive, but routine. The baker's apprentice tries to knead dough with hands that tremble from fever. The blacksmith lights his forge again, though the hammer strikes are softer now, as if even iron feels sorrow. Mothers sweep thresholds with a kind of grim defiance, brushing away not just dust but memory. A cart passes down the lane, creaking beneath sacks of grain, and for a fleeting second it sounds like the old days, before the bell, before the stink, before you, but the illusion is thin. You linger not as a name, but as a fact, an absence too large to be ignored, too quiet to be spoken aloud. They still say that house, but now it's just a shadow in conversation, a space no one points to. The children play farther from it. The dogs avoid its corner. The field behind it grows wild, as if nature itself has decided not to interfere anymore. Your absence becomes its own sort of presence. Inside the homes of the living, whispers breed faster than rats. Some say your ghost walks, that you knock once on doors late at night, soft and sad, asking for water. Others swear they hear your voice in the wind, calling names that haven't been spoken in weeks. The priest tries to put a stop to it. Superstition, he mutters, but he's paler now, his robes hanging loose around his bones. He's run out of prayers that sound convincing. Even he flinches when walking past your street, especially at dusk. The villagers, for all their denial, never quite forget that plague does not disappear, it simply changes shape. Sometimes it's a fever, sometimes a cough, sometimes a story. One night, the gravedigger returns to the trench. Not because he has more bodies, there's a brief lull. A trick of fate, but because he can't sleep. He stands at the edge of the filled pit and stares at the packed earth. He doesn't speak. He just watches. The moonlight cuts across the hill, and for a moment, the red cloth still tied to the nearby stick flutters again, though there's no wind. He presses a finger to the soil, then stands and walks away. No one sees him go. No one asks why he was there. But in the morning, someone notices that the red cloth is gone. Historians still argue whether rural communities preserve memory through stories or silence. Some say people clung to every name, every grave, every lesson. Others insist that the only way to survive was to forget quickly, completely, without apology. Your village seems trapped between both. They won't speak your name, but they also won't step where your door once stood. They paint over it, rebuild it, plant flowers in front of it, but they walk around it just the same. Elsewhere in town, life limps forward. The well still flows. The forge still burns. The church still opens its doors, though fewer enter now. One Sunday, a child cries during Mass, a high, keening wail. No one scolds. No one hushes. The sound slices through the incense and Latin like a blade. Some weep, quietly, just a little. The priest forgets where he is in the reading. When he looks up, half the pews are empty. A merchant arrives days later, his wagon creaking under bolts of cloth and jars of salve. He sets up in the square and calls out cheerfully, but no one answers. He sells 3 jars, 1 spoon, and a tin mirror. At night, he drinks alone beside his fire and mutters, "This place is cursed." The next morning, he's gone. The mirror he sold is found shattered beside the well. No one admits to breaking it. In the corner of the village, a girl wakes with a fever. Her mother hushes her, tells her to sleep. "It's just the weather," she whispers. "The air is damp." She doesn't believe herself, but she says it anyway. Denial is the only inheritance left. She draws the curtain. She lights a candle. She watches the flame flicker. Then, she listens to the silence outside, the creak of the roof, the breath of her child. She doesn't cry. Not yet. Later that week, the bell returns. 1 ring, 2, then silence. It's enough. People know. The field behind your old hut comes the shortcut for those who no longer wish to walk past your door. Children take the long way around. Dogs bark more often. The village tightens again. Meals grow smaller. Fires burn shorter. No one says the word plague, but it hangs behind every sentence, hidden like smoke in a wool coat. You have become their template, their model of what not to say, what not to acknowledge, what not to become. In the pit, the earth settles. The lime does its work. Bodies break down. Memory softens. You're not alone. Not physically, but the soul, whatever it was, has long since left. The bones remain. The cloth, a button, a lock of hair. Mice nest there now. Sometimes, a root reaches in from the side, splitting the clay. Nature returns, slowly, steadily. It has no opinion about plague or people. It only knows how to reclaim. Your hut, or what's rebuilt in its place, eventually becomes storage, a room for tools, a shed for wood. Someone hammers in new nails. The door opens again. A child is born in the house 2 doors down. They name him after the boy who brought you bread. Not in your honor, no one remembers that part, but because it's a good name, a strong name, the kind of name that survives. Years pass. The pit becomes a garden, of sorts. Not officially. No markers, no fence, but the earth is rich. Plants grow better there. No one says why. They just nod when the carrots come up bright and fat. Good soil, they say, and they're not wrong. Historians still debate how much the survivors remembered, whether they could trace the outlines of who was lost, or if the weight of it all turned into mist. You've become that mist, a presence without shape, a chapter without a name, and yet, sometimes, when the wind moves just right, and the daisies on the hill lean toward the village, it feels like you might still be listening. A girl lies in the grass one summer evening, her eyes closed, her breath slow. She's not sick, just resting. She hears the wind and the bees and the far-off clink of someone fetching water. In her mind, she imagines a face, not one she knows, not one she can name, but it feels familiar. She hums a tune, the same tune you once whispered to a dying candle. And though she doesn't know the words, she gets the melody just right. You don't remember the first time someone dreamed of you. It was quiet, without trumpet or thunder, without drama, just a flicker, a face glimpsed in passing, a voice heard in sleep. You had no intention of returning? Not really. But the villagers remembered you in the way the earth remembers the sun after a long winter, not through will, but through pattern. Your story became part of the way they walked. the way they paused at crossroads, the way they muttered before bed. It wasn't about you, precisely. You had no statue, no song, no gravestone. But every time someone lit a candle and didn't know why, every time a mother pressed a palm to her child's brow with sudden dread, something of you was there, lingering, not haunting, just held, loosely, in the folds of the place. The house was long gone now, rebuilt, repurposed, reshingled, but the boards still creaked in the same spot near the hearth. The wind still found its way through the roof seams on certain nights, and the people inside still sometimes woke with a chill they couldn't explain. One such night, generations later, a boy barely 8, with freckles and a crooked tooth, woke to the sound of breathing. Not his own, not his sister's, something slower, thicker, like wind, but deeper. He sat up, heart clutched like a fist, and stared into the dark. Nothing moved. The embers in the hearth glowed faintly, painting red strokes along the floorboards. He whispered, "Hello." The sound echoed too clearly, as if the room were larger than it should be. Then nothing. No answer. Just silence folding back over the moment like cloth over a mirror. He lay down again, but he didn't sleep. In the morning, he told no one, but he avoided that room for days. And he never quite forgot the way the air had felt thick, expectant, like someone waiting for their name to be spoken. Historians often dismiss tales like this. They call them folklore, exaggeration, rural hysteria, but in villages like yours, forgotten by maps, left behind by kingdoms and kings, stories were currency, and stories like yours were traded in whispers, passed from porch to porch like bread during famine. They changed over time, as stories do. Some versions said you were a healer, some said you were cursed, a few claimed you never died, only vanished into the forest, and that your ghost took the plague with it. Most didn't mention your name. They simply referred to the one behind the boards, or, more often, just the silence. That silence mattered. It had weight. Even now, in a village rebuilt on top of its own ashes, people paused when they passed that corner. The new road curved slightly away from where your door once stood, not for any architectural reason, just because it always had. And so it still did. A quirk of layout, a ripple of memory that outlived those who originally made the choice. You were a dent in the fabric of place, the kind that never quite smoothed out. Each spring, the daisies on the hill bloomed early. A local oddity, no one questioned it too deeply. Some said it was the way the sunlight hit the slope. Others mumbled about soil richness, but one old woman, bent and quiet, swore she saw footprints among the blooms once, bare, narrow, walking alone toward the woods. She told her granddaughter, who laughed, and then told her again just before she died. The granddaughter didn't laugh that time. She visited the field the next morning and found one daisy crushed beneath a shallow heel mark. Just one. In another time, in another century, a scholar came to the village. He carried a notebook and a thirst for forgotten things. He asked about the plague years, the burial pit, the stories. Most people shrugged. Some said, "You should talk to the priest." Others just pointed toward the hill and told him to bring a lantern. He climbed it at dusk, sat among the flowers, and waited. He saw nothing, heard nothing. But as he wrote in his notebook, the ink pooled oddly on one page, spreading sideways into a shape that resembled a door. He frowned, turned the page, and continued writing. He did not include that page in his published book. You don't appear often, only in fragments. A chill behind the spine, a dream that lingers too long, a face in the crowd that disappears when looked at directly. Your story, once so physical, so grounded in sweat and fever and breath, is now a whisper in the structure of the village itself. You're not remembered for who you were, but for what your absence taught them: the danger of silence, the weight of a sealed door, the thin line between survival and forgetting. Occasionally, a child will ask, "Why does that part of the field grow faster?" Or "Why does that room always feel colder?" And an elder will say something vague, like, "Some places just remember," and the child will nod, not fully understanding, but sensing that the answer is complete. that it reaches back further than questions are meant to, that it holds something older than the people still living. In quiet winters, when snow falls thick and even the livestock huddle tight for warmth, someone in the village will light a candle for no particular reason. They will place it in a window, let it burn low, let it flicker, and though they might say it's for tradition, or habit, or atmosphere, deep down they'll know it's something else. A nod, a moment, a recognition of a story that once ended behind a nailed-shut door. The bird has long since gone, but sometimes its descendants nest in the same eaves. They are quieter than most, not quite tame, but not entirely wild. The villagers feed them crumbs, speak to them in soft voices, and never, ever shoo them away. One boy named one of them Ash, without knowing why. When it died, he buried it by the daisies. No cross, just a flat stone and a single word. Still. The trench is no longer visible, but the earth there holds differently. It absorbs water slower, grows moss faster, dogs avoid it, kids dare each other to walk across it barefoot. Some do, most don't. The daisy field, nearby, thrives more than ever. Bees love it. So do poets. One traveler wrote a verse about the way the petals seemed to turn even when there was no wind. The local apothecary included it in his herb journal, claiming that tea brewed from those daisies cured restlessness of spirit. No one argued, and so you persist not in grief, not in warning, but in texture. You're the rough patch in the grain, the silence in a hymn, the pause before a mother answers her child's question, the way people walk a little faster near the old boundary. You were never famous, never powerful, but you mattered, not for how you lived, but for how they remember around you. And if one night, someone wakes with a sore throat and a fever, and finds themselves whispering your name without knowing why, they will light a candle, they will sit beside it, and they will not feel alone. There is an old saying passed around the village now, though no one recalls who first said it. The sickness never left. It just learned to walk slower. It's said quietly, often while hands are busy kneading dough, tying bundles of herbs, brushing ash from the hearth. People don't repeat it because they believe a new plague is coming. They repeat it because, in some strange way, it makes the current quietness make more sense, because every so often, the quiet becomes too quiet. A door creaks open at night with no wind. A shadow lingers in a window a moment longer than it should. A child wakes and says, "Someone was standing beside my bed," and the mother hushes the child, strokes their hair, but her own eyes drift toward the old corner of the house, the one that always stays a little colder, the one where, sometimes, the dog won't sleep. It's not terror anymore. That has passed. It's just something understood, like the way dusk always seems to come faster in autumn, or how the daisies on the hill never stop blooming. In that same corner of the village, someone has taken to carving flowers into the doors of houses, not real daisies, but simple, careful shapes, petals in a circle, etched with a dull blade. No one admits to doing it. The carvings just appear, quietly, like frost on windows. Some say it's the blacksmith's daughter. Others think it's the quiet boy who tends goats near the well. Whoever it is, the villagers leave the carvings alone. They don't scrub them off, don't paint over them. One woman even traced hers with blue chalk. For luck, she said, but everyone knew it was more than that. The carving appeared on what was once your door, too, though that wood has long since been reused. It shows up again and again every time someone repairs a wall with planks from the old storage hut, or reuses beams from a collapsed roof. You have become not only memory, but material. Your house breathes through theirs. The burial pit, though long flattened and overgrown, still rises slightly in the winter when the ground freezes. A strange mound, barely noticeable, except to those who know what they're looking for. Animals won't dig there. They dig everywhere else, but not there. One dog barked at it for hours one night, until its owner dragged it away. No one questioned it. The priest simply muttered something about thin places and refused to explain further. And so, the pit remains, not marked, not fenced, but honored, in the way only old villages know how to honor things quietly, through avoidance, through careful ritual disguised as daily life. Historians, when they visit, are baffled. They ask about the carvings, the path that curves unnecessarily wide around the daisies, the pit that no one tends but everyone walks around. The villagers shrug, they offer jokes or vague legends. They speak of old fears and silly customs, but never the truth, because the truth isn't something that gets spoken, it's something that sits beside you at dusk, breathes on the back of your neck, and makes you double-check the lock on the door even though the air is still. One day, the well dries slightly, and the villagers gather to discuss whether it's time to dig a new one. They vote to move it 20 paces west, not because that spot is better, but because it's farther from the pit, from you, from the place where the sickness settled longest. The children don't know this. They just think the new well has better water, and maybe it does. But every time a bucket comes up too fast or sloshes oddly, someone will glance back at the old spot and say nothing. A traveling peddler passes through and hears the stories, the silences, the way people speak without speaking. He buys a bundle of daisies from a girl who grows them near the slope. They grow even when nothing else does. She tells him. He nods, smiles. But he doesn't sleep well in the village. The next morning, he leaves early, muttering something about the shadows in the eaves. He tells the next town. That place remembers too much. His words linger for years. People start calling it the Remembering Village. Maps begin to mark it as such. The name sticks. Still, life continues. Children are born. Elders pass quietly in their sleep. Crops grow, fail, grow again. People love, argue, forgive. The church roof is replaced. The road widened. A new house built where the barley field once stood. But some rhythms persist, unchanged. Bread is always salted twice on feast days. Doors are never left open overnight. And every year, on the first day of spring, someone no one ever admits who leaves a bowl of water on the ground outside the oldest home. Just water, nothing more. By morning, it's always empty. The daisies, as always, bloom first, before the grass, before the bees return, before anyone remembers to plant. They push through frost like they don't care it's too early, like they're following a memory instead of a season. The elders say they've always been that way, that they're stubborn, that they come from a time when even flowers had to fight to be seen. And every year, more of them appear, in fields, by doors, along paths. Someone eventually starts calling them plague blossoms, in a fit of dark humor, but it doesn't stick. People prefer the name wish flowers. It feels kinder. One spring, a child plants a daisy near the village gate, just to see if it'll grow. It does. Then another does the same. By summer, the path out of the village is lined with them. The priest blesses the path. The blacksmith makes a small iron daisy and nails it to the post. Not because anyone asked him to, just because it felt right. And beneath it, he carves a word. One word. No one else notices for weeks. But eventually, someone does. They trace it with their fingers, then with chalk, then with paint. The word is simple. Still, you remain not as a warning, but as a witness, as a whisper in the mortar, as a light that flickers just before someone dreams of silence. You are part of the village's grammar now, a comma where a sentence once ended, a breath held, a pause before a child is named. The forest beyond the hill thickens with time, but a path remains. It curves gently to the left, past the place where the hut once stood. No one clears it, no one marks it, but it never grows over. Even moss avoids it. Some say it's just the way the ground settled. Others call it a trail for the forgotten. But every so often, someone walks it, alone, usually at dawn or twilight. They don't speak. They don't take tools. They walk until the trees swallow them, then return hours later, quiet, changed in some small way, and no one asks them what they saw, because they already know. The summer the bees vanished. People whispered that it was happening again. Not because of illness, there were no coughs, no boils, no late-night hammering of boards across doors, but because the stillness had returned. A quiet too dense to explain, the kind that settles in the corners of a room and refuses to leave. Flowers bloomed, but went untouched. Bread rose, but tasted hollow. Even the dogs barked less, as if something in the air warned them not to draw too much attention. The villagers didn't panic. They'd lived through worse, but they adjusted. They walked softer. They lowered their voices. They started drawing the daisy symbol again, not just on doors, but on fences, on stools, even into the dirt with their fingers. No one said why. It was just something that needed doing. The priest delivered sermons with longer pauses. The blacksmith began leaving iron daisies at crossroads. The children stopped playing near the edge of the pit. There was no decree, no emergency, just a shared feeling. Wordless and solid as stone, something was near again. That summer, the air changed. Not in temperature, but in weight. Each breath carried something, not sickness, but history, a thickness. People who hadn't thought of you in years found themselves walking past the old boundary and muttering your name, not out of fear, but like a key word that opened some old lock in the brain. Still, they'd say, brushing dust off a daisy carving. Still, they didn't mean you were alive. They meant you were present. They meant what had happened hadn't vanished. It had only woven itself deeper into the ground. Even now, children born long after your body had melted into soil had dreams of your final night. They'd wake with fevers, not dangerous, just warm. And they'd ask about the field, the daisies, the silence. Their parents never quite knew how to answer. One girl, maybe 8, walked out to the hill at dawn, alone. Her family found her curled among the flowers, asleep. When they shook her awake, she smiled and said, "They told me stories." Who did her mother ask? The ground. The girl answered. She never explained more than that. Just picked a daisy, tucked it behind her ear, and walked home barefoot. Her feet caked in soil that had not yet been disturbed by shovels that season. Her father built her a swing the next day. Her mother hung a charm over the door. No one asked the priest for guidance. The priest had started speaking less anyway. Historians, of course, never documented these things. They speak of cycles, of medieval fears resurfacing in moments of hardship, of the psychological echo chamber of post-traumatic rural societies. But the villagers didn't need documentation. They had the stories, the quiet ones, the slow ones, passed between hands like bread dough, reshaped slightly each time, but always rising from the same ingredients. They didn't write about the birds nesting only in certain beams. They didn't chart the frequency of dreams that led people to visit the old side of the door. They didn't need to. They lived it. Every time a child's fever broke just after the candle burned down. Every time a window refused to stay shut until someone whispered your name. One evening, an elder, the same boy who once heard breathing in the dark, now gray and stooped, sat by the well and told a story. No children asked for it. He just began. Voice slow, hands still. "There was a house once," he said. "And in that house lived someone who got very, very quiet." The children didn't interrupt. They knew this one. And the village, he continued, decided not to listen, because listening was scary. And when they stopped listening, something worse happened. A little girl asked, "Did they die?" The man nodded. "Yes, but they didn't leave." Silence. "They stayed," she asked. "Sort of," he said. "Not like a ghost, more like a memory you walk through without knowing." Another child whispered, "Like wind." The man smiled. Exactly like wind. That year, the daisies grew taller, almost waist-high by July. Bees returned, but not many, just enough. The villagers took it as a sign. They began weaving the flowers into garlands again, like they used to, not for weddings, but for windowsills, for fence posts, for the steps leading up to homes. They didn't call it a ritual. They didn't call it anything. Just something to do with your hands when the silence got too loud. One boy made a chain of flowers so long he draped it around the well. The next morning, the water tasted sweeter. He didn't tell anyone, but he started bringing a cup for the neighbor girl who'd been coughing. You were not seen, not heard, but felt, in how people waited longer before speaking, in how they touched the daisy carvings without realizing, in how the wind through the chapel's broken window sometimes carried a scent like the old herbs Marta once packed in her bag. Mint, thyme, rue. Even the priest noticed. He stopped preparing sermons and instead began asking questions. At the end of each mass, he'd say, "What do you remember today?" No one ever answered aloud, but they'd bow their heads and whisper privately, each to their own past, their own brush with silence. The pit, now surrounded by trees, grew mushrooms the size of teacups. Someone tried to harvest them once, but their goats refused to eat them. The family took that as a sign and never picked them again. One girl tried pressing one between pages of a book, but it rotted too fast. She burned the book in her hearth and placed a daisy where the ashes fell. Her mother said nothing, just sat beside her and stared into the fire until the sun went down. You had become folklore now, but not the frightening kind, the comforting kind, the kind that gives shape to grief. You were the face behind the idea that no one disappears completely, that even those without gravestones can leave grooves in time. People began referring to the house that listens, even though it had been torn down twice, rebuilt, then turned into a tool shed. The current owner hung a bell inside it, not to ring, just to catch light. And on breezy days, it tinkled softly, a gentle reminder that stories live longer than structures. And the daisies, the daisies kept growing. Their roots worked their way deep into the same earth that once cradled your fevered breath. Children played among them. Old lovers met there to remember their youth. The apothecary harvested them now and then, swearing they cured sadness better than any tincture. No one laughed at the claim. Even the scholar who once dismissed your story returned, older now, and sat among the flowers for an afternoon. He wrote nothing, just stared. And when he left, he took no notes. Only one petal, pressed between the pages of a book he'd never open again. The air turns colder again, as it always does, but the villagers no longer fear it as they once did. The cold is expected, measurable, manageable. It creeps through gaps in doors and between bricks, but it does not carry fever, at least, not this year. Still, something about this particular autumn feels heavy, not dangerous, just solemn, as if the wind has returned with a memory it isn't ready to share. The leaves fall early, the rain arrives late, fires are lit a little sooner, and people gather closer around them, speaking in half-formed thoughts, murmuring about the strange dreams they've had, dreams of walking through mist, of doors nailed shut, of names written in soot and forgotten by morning. No one mentions your name directly anymore. It has gone underground, like a spring beneath a dry field, absent, but powerful. Even those who've never heard your story, who've never seen the daisy carvings or touched the old beams from your house, still behave as if they know you. They carry water differently. They wait a heartbeat longer before saying goodbye. One boy, curious and bold, asks the schoolmaster about the old pit. Was it real, he says? Did they really bury everyone there, all in one place? The schoolmaster, older now and prone to long silences, thinks for a while before answering. Yes, he says, finally. And no, they buried bodies. Yes, but not what those bodies meant. That part stays above the dirt. The boy doesn't quite understand, but he nods anyway. Later that day, he carves a daisy into the bottom of his desk. He doesn't tell anyone. He just does it, because it feels like something worth doing. The carpenter begins building with reclaimed wood again. He says it's sturdy, good, strong through the seasons. Some of the beams are old, older than he can trace. Some, he suspects, may have come from your home, though no one can be sure. He finds carvings already there, faint lines, forgotten marks. A few he leaves untouched, a few he retraces with care, making them new again. One morning, while planning a length of oak, he finds a knot shaped like a closed eye. He pauses, touches it, then continues sanding. Not everything needs explanation. Outside the chapel, the old bell is rung for a different reason now. Once, it tolled for death. Then, for weddings. Now, once each season, it rings simply to remember. There's no speech, no service, no list of names. Just one long note, drawn out into the air like a breath finally released. The villagers stand in silence as it echoes across rooftops and fields, across the burial ground and the daisy hill. Children grow restless during it, but they are hushed with soft fingers. When the bell finally stops, no one claps, no one cheers. They simply go home, quietly, walking slowly, as if not to disturb something listening just below the soil. Historians visiting in autumn are charmed by these rituals. They call them seasonal affective customs or communal catharsis. They write papers about the role of plague memory in the construction of rural identity, but they never ask why even the bravest child won't enter the woods alone after sunset, or why every home keeps a candle by the window, even homes without faith. They don't notice that no one whistles near the daisies, or that the phrase "still here" has become both greeting and farewell. They don't notice when the birds go silent, all at once, for one breath each morning, but the villagers do, always. The pit, covered now with grass and low brush, becomes a place where nothing is built. No fences, no roads, no homes. Not because it is cursed, but because it is full of stories, of names once spoken and now carried only in the bones of those who passed the memory down. People walk around it by instinct. Children ask why and are told simply, because we do, and that is enough. One family picnics there every spring, not on the mound, but beside it. They bring bread and cheese and wine, and they speak softly, as if telling secrets to the earth. When the wind stirs their blanket, they do not complain. In the village square, a new mural appears. No one commissions it. A girl begins it with chalk. Others add to it. A house, a flower, a door, a figure lying in bed, not alone, but surrounded by the outlines of people not touching, but near. At first, adults shake their heads. Children's games, they say, but the mural stays. Each day, it gains new lines, new color, a sun with too many rays, a tree with a hollow full of eyes, a bird in a nest that looks like a crown. Eventually, the mayor decides to leave it. "We've seen worse on these walls," she says. "Let them draw." That winter, it snows earlier than expected. Thick, quiet snow that falls like memory, slow and uninvited, yet oddly comforting. The village stills, paths disappear, time softens, fires burn longer, conversations stretch out like smoke. The daisies vanish beneath white, but people remember exactly where they were. Children press snow into daisy shapes. Adults sip tea brewed with dried petals. No one mentions the pit, but a few walk past it each evening, just to look. Not out of duty, but out of rhythm. Your presence, by now, is not something debated or dissected. It's assumed, like the way light bends through stained glass, or how bread always needs time to rise. You are simply part of how the village lives. They speak your memory in rituals of omission, doors never left open, windows never locked completely, hands always washed after funerals. You live in the breath before someone says "I remember." You are the space between footfalls in the snow. One night, during the deepest stretch of winter, a boy awakes crying. His father comes quickly, sits on the edge of the bed, and strokes his hair. "What did you see?" he asks. The boy sniffles, wipes his nose. "A house," he says, "with someone inside, and no one came." The father's hand stills for just a moment, then continues. "What happened next?" he asks. The boy thinks, "I opened the door." The father says nothing, but his eyes shine wet in the candlelight. He leans forward, kisses his son's forehead, and says softly, "Then you did something very kind." And outside, the snow continues falling, soft and soundless, blanketing every trace of footsteps, every line of the mural, every beam from every rebuilt home. It covers the daisy hill. It settles over the pit. It coats the iron daisy nailed to the chapel's frame. And somewhere in that quiet, something breathes, not a ghost, not a shadow, just the echo of a life once lived. Still. Spring doesn't announce itself with fanfare. It arrives the way breath returns after a held note, gently, like a forgotten thought rising back to the surface. The snow melts not in great floods, but in shy trickles beneath the eaves. The mud returns to the paths, the trees stretch, and the sky, always gray for months, begins to remember how to be blue again. In the village, people open their windows not to air out sickness, but to listen, for birdsong, for laughter, for the small rustling that means life has resumed. Children are the first to feel it. They run barefoot again, tracing familiar routes with new energy, skipping past the field without fear, their feet carrying them in loops and zigzags across earth still soft from thaw. One little girl picks the first daisy of the season and says, "It's early," but smiles as she says it, as though the flower knows something she doesn't. Her mother watches, arms folded, heart quiet. She doesn't stop the child, but her eyes do linger longer on the ground than usual, as if trying to read it for signs. The pit, invisible beneath grass now long and green, becomes a resting place not just for bones but for footsteps. People walk past it with baskets of seedlings and buckets of feed. They don't pause, don't cross themselves or mutter charms anymore, but they don't forget. Their eyes still soften when they pass. One man, a widower, takes to sitting beside it in the early evenings, reading aloud from a book of poems. He says nothing about why, just sits, voice low, fingers tracing the curve of each letter, as though sound itself might warm the earth. The children call him the Whisper Man, and one day, without telling him, they lay daisies in a ring around his chair. He sees them, smiles, but leaves them untouched. In the village square, the mural has been refreshed, not replaced, never replaced, but added to. Now there are more houses, more flowers, a river where once there was only a line. The figure in the bed remains, though now there is a window drawn beside them. Through it, a sun. The older children take to washing the wall gently each month before repainting the lines. The chalk colors change with the season earth tones in autumn. Gray in winter, gold and blue in spring. A visitor once asked what the picture meant. The children didn't answer. They just kept painting. One day, a cart arrives from a distant town. On it, a woman with tired eyes and hands used to thread. She carries bolts of fabric linen, wool, the scent of lavender pressed between each fold. She sets up a stall beside the well. The villagers greet her kindly but cautiously, as they do with all travelers. She sells well, trades better, and by the third day, people invite her into their homes. She notices the carvings daisies on every door frame, some so worn they're little more than grooves. She asks once, casually, "What's with all the flowers?" The man she asks, an old wheelwright with a voice like bark, just says, "They grow well here." She doesn't press, but that night, she carves her own on the leg of her table. The next morning, she gives away an extra scarf to a girl with tangled hair and doesn't know why. The priest, now older, slower, speaks even less. His sermons are short, his steps measured, but when he walks past your place, still called your place, though it has no plaque, no roof, no title, he always touches the lintel, once with his hand, now, more often, with his sleeve. It's become instinct, the same way one steps around a puddle without thinking. When he blesses a home, he always ends with a daisy at the doorstep. No holy water, no chant, just a flower placed gently, its petals curled inward, like folded hands. People say nothing. They leave it there until it dries, then tuck it into books, into rafters, into shirt pockets. It becomes a kind of private ritual, one not inherited, but discovered. Historians might call all of this folklore again. They'd say it lacks precision, that it meanders, that it blends fact and feeling in a way that muddies the past. But no one here seeks clarity. They seek coherence, a way to live with the absences, a way to name what's gone without collapsing under its weight. And so they carry on, baking bread, tending goats, losing things, finding them again. The boy who once walked barefoot through the daisy path grows into a man who builds chairs shaped like petals. He never says why, but every chair he sells is left beside a home with a daisy carved somewhere on the threshold. One evening, as dusk folds over the rooftops like a shawl, The wind picks up, not a storm, not a threat, just enough to shake loose the scent of mint from an herb garden behind the chapel. An old woman lifts her head and breathes deep. "Smells like Marta," she says aloud. The others nearby don't flinch, just nod. It's not a strange thing to say here. The wind carries more than air. It carries old hands, old herbs, old whispers, especially when it blows from the east. That night, a child wakes from a dream and walks out of her house. No one stops her. She walks to the daisy hill, lies down in the grass, and stares up at the stars. When her mother finds her, she says, "I just wanted to listen." They stay there for a while, side by side, the mother humming something she barely remembers learning. The melody doesn't matter, only the rhythm, the hush between each note, the stillness they both recognize but cannot name. There's a rumor these days that if you sleep with a daisy under your pillow, you'll dream of the person you've forgotten but still love. No one knows where it started, but everyone tries it at least once. Some report dreams of laughter in kitchens, others of voices calling names in fields. One man says he saw a house with a single candle flickering and someone lying inside it, but they weren't afraid. They looked ready, he says, not for death, just for silence. He doesn't dream again for a month, and when he does, he wakes smiling. A small boy, barely old enough to speak in full sentences, once wandered away during market day. They found him 2 hours later, at the edge of the pit, sitting quietly and drawing daisies in the dirt. When asked why he'd gone there, he simply said, "She asked me to." Who, they said, "The one with the blanket," he answered. He couldn't explain further. No one made him. But that night, someone left a daisy on the pit's edge, and the next morning, more had grown there, taller than usual. You have become myth now, but not in the way myths harden. You haven't become fixed. You are fluid, woven into weather, into routine, into the soft grammar of lives trying to stay whole. You aren't a warning. You aren't a curse. You are the whisper that keeps the bread from burning, the draft that makes someone turn and check the fire again, the voice that says, when the fever begins, boil everything, and the breath that follows, not in fear, but in understanding. Still here, 1 year, a traveling singer comes to the village. He's young, with a coat too big for his shoulders and a voice like warm gravel, and he sets up outside the inn with a lute that's seen better centuries. He sings about kings and wars and seas he's never seen, and the villagers listen kindly, though not intently. It's only when he finishes his second song and pauses to sip ale that someone calls out, "Do you know the one about the daisies?" The singer looks confused. "You'll need to be more specific," he replies, smiling. "Is it about love?" A few heads shake. About plague? Then more shaking. About someone who stayed that gets a long silence. Then someone nods. Then another. Says the singer, catching something in their eyes that wasn't there for the songs of ships and crowns. He strums once, testing, then says, "No, I don't know it, but maybe you do." And so he listens. He stays for 3 nights, sleeping above the smithy, wandering the fields, watching the daisies bend without wind. He doesn't write the song down. He just listens. When he finally plays it, he doesn't introduce it. He simply begins. The melody is slow, low, something you feel in your ribs more than your ears. There are no verses, only fragments. A door closing, a window left open, a cough in the next room, a name never spoken again. The daisies bloom. The child walks. The bell rings. The flame flickers once, then dies. The silence that follows is heavier than the song, and yet it comforts. Not in the way lullabies soothe children, but in the way an old blanket still smells like the person who wrapped you in it. When he finishes, no one claps. They just sit, watching him, or the ground, or the sky, and he nods. "That's the song," he says. "Yours, not mine." He leaves the next morning, but the tune lingers. Children hum it without realizing. Old men whistle it while chopping wood. One woman sings it to her dying husband. not remembering where she learned it. The priest incorporates a few of its notes into the chant for evening mass. Slowly, without design, it becomes part of the village, like the smell of firewood or the tilt of the roof lines. It becomes how people mark time before the song. After the song, no one writes it down. They don't need to. It's carried in the body now, like grief, like breath. Historians, if they ever came back, might find it odd. A whole town humming a song that isn't on paper, a melody that no one admits to composing, but they'd miss the point. It isn't a song in the usual sense. It's more like a ritual, a pulse that keeps rhythm with the seasons, a memory that keeps shifting just out of focus. The villagers never call it the Song of the Plague or the Daisy Tune. They don't call it anything, they just use it. The way you might use a handrail when the stairs are steep, the way you might say someone's name into a dark room, even if you know they aren't there, just in case. The mural in the village square gains new details after the singer leaves. Someone draws the lute, someone else adds a figure with no face. One child paints a daisy whose petals extend beyond the edges of the wall. When the rains come, parts of it wash away, but the flower remains. It always does. They repaint it each spring now. It's become something of a festival, though no one calls it that. More like a day where no one plans anything. A day for hands to move gently, for words to stay soft, for the past to feel close but not unbearable. That spring, someone finds a bone near the edge of the pit, a small one, clean, white, curled slightly like a question mark. They bring it to the priest. He doesn't ask whose it was. He doesn't ask why they brought it. He just takes it, wraps it in cloth, and buries it again closer to the daisies this time. The person who found it leaves a petal on the threshold of their home. Not a flower, just one petal, pale yellow, slightly frayed. It stays there for weeks before the wind takes it. In summer, a strange silence returns, not fearful, not heavy, but reverent. The fields are full. The sun is generous. But people walk a little slower, speak a little quieter, as if something is being born or remembered. One evening, lightning flashes far away on the horizon, and the air smells like mint and clay. An elder woman says she's watching. No one asks who. They all know, even those born after the mural, after the carvings, after the song. The knowledge is part of the soil now. You'd have to leave the village entirely to forget, and even then, you might still dream. One boy does leave, grows older, moves to a city, marries, works, but on rainy nights, he sometimes wakes and hums a tune he cannot name. His wife asks him once, "What is that song?" He shakes his head, "I don't know, but it makes me feel like someone is still there." He writes it down one night, then tears it up the next morning. Some things aren't meant for paper. Some things are only true when they're felt. Back in the village, life goes on. Cows are milked. Tools are sharpened. Children scrape knees and learn which plants not to eat. No plague comes. No illness takes root. But the memory of it, the rhythm of it, shapes the way people live. Not in fear, but in respect. They still leave water by the door on certain nights. Still place petals in bowls. Still open the window, just slightly, before sleep. Still pause before locking the door. Still hum the melody when the fire burns low. The pit remains undisturbed. The earth atop it rises and falls with the seasons, softening with rain, tightening with frost. Grass grows long there, sometimes violets, sometimes nothing. The wind moves differently over it, as if thinner, more transparent. People notice, but don't speak of it. When children ask, parents say, "That's where we remember." And it's true, not just who died, but how they were lost, and how they stayed, how you stayed. You are no longer a name, or a story, or even a song. You are an instinct now, a caution passed from breath to breath, a warmth carried in the stillness between verses. You are the reason someone closes the shutters early, or cups their hands around a candle on a windy night. You are the reason the daisies still bloom first, and the reason they are never picked all at once. You are the village's muscle memory, and sometimes, when the sky's clear and the night is warm, someone will sit on the hill, fingers idly plucking grass, humming nothing in particular, and feel without knowing why that they are not alone. That something in the dark, beyond the trees, has turned its face toward them, not to frighten, not to beckon, but simply to witness, as you once were witnessed. Still, autumn rolls in again, soft as a yawn, and with it the light shifts, gilding the edge of everything, even grief. The trees don't blaze so much as smolder, oranges dulled by years of repetition, yellows like parchment worn at the corners. The village slows, the fields are quieter now, the flowers on the hill begin to wither, but no one minds. The daisy roots are deep, they'll return, they always do. A boy with the new boots walks through the field and stops when he feels the soft give of earth beneath one particular patch, just a little too soft, like memory. He looks around, nothing unusual, but he steps back carefully, then goes the long way around. He doesn't know why. He just does. His grandmother once told him, "Trust the ground, it remembers more than we do." He thought she meant it as poetry. Maybe she did, but maybe it was instruction. The kind passed through generations not as command, but as shape. The way a path curves for no reason. The way the door creaks, always, on the third night of rain. That year, the winter arrives suddenly. A cold snap so sharp it silences even the crows. Pipes freeze, fires burn all day. The smoke hovers low like a hesitant spirit. People stay inside more, stories come back out. Not the big ones, the myths, the saints, but the small ones. Do you remember that year the daisies bloomed in February? Do you remember the girl who used to hum in the morning before the sun rose? They don't say names. They don't have to. The listeners nod. The stories are incomplete by design. Their gaps are the meaning. The way your name is never quite spoken. The way the old house is never fully rebuilt. Some stories stay unfinished on purpose, like windows left open just a crack, in case something wants to come back in. The mural fades. That's what chalk does. But the village doesn't erase it. They let it fade, let it be worn by wind and time. Eventually, only the daisy remains. Not because it was drawn better, but because it was drawn more often, redrawn, retraced, always in the same place, always with the same number of petals, though no one ever counts aloud. It becomes a kind of compass. When children get lost in games or arguments, they meet back at the flower. When a couple quarrels, one of them inevitably ends up there, waiting. It becomes the village's quiet apology, a symbol of returning, not to what was, but to what endured. In one house, a girl finds an old box in the rafters. Inside, a square of linen, yellowed with time. She doesn't know what it is, just that someone once folded it carefully. She presses it to her cheek. It smells faintly of smoke, maybe herbs, mint, or just the idea of mint. She hides it beneath her pillow, not out of secrecy, but reverence. That night, she dreams of a candle that doesn't go out. No fire, just glow. She wakes before dawn and places the cloth on her windowsill. The wind takes it by mid-morning. She says nothing. She doesn't need to. The pit, as always, stays unmarked. Not neglected, just unclaimed. Trees lean toward it like eavesdropping. Grass refuses to grow too thick. Once, a goat wandered too close and broke its leg in a hole no one had seen before. The farmer buried the goat beside the daisies. Said it felt right. People nodded. They always do when someone says that. It's never questioned. Feeling right is the village's final authority on such things. A new priest arrives, young and full of optimism. He tries to clear out the back of the chapel, finding old icons, boxes of melted candles, and scraps of hymns written in hands long since buried. He finds a piece of wood with a daisy etched into it, blackened at one edge. He brings it out during Mass, holding it up like a relic. Does this belong to someone, he asks? No one answers. Afterward, the baker gently takes it from him and sets it beside the bell. It already belongs somewhere, she says. The priest tries again, a few weeks later, to clean the daisies from a nearby wall, thinking them graffiti. That night, his door creaks open twice. In the morning, he finds a daisy on his pillow. He doesn't try again. Historians won't record this, Of course, not the dreams, not the doors, not the quiet way a village protects something it doesn't entirely understand. They'll write about climate and soil and folklore patterns. They'll miss how memory works here, not as fact, but as muscle, as reflex, the same way you flinch before the bell rings, the same way you hum before lighting a fire, the same way when someone you love falls ill, you open the window, just enough, and whisper into the night, not asking for healing, just asking to be remembered. One autumn night, the wind howls louder than usual, shutters slam, children crawl into bed with their parents, the power flickers. There's power now, though it never reaches the hill. The villagers do not panic. They light candles. They gather by the hearth, and someone no one remembers who starts humming. The melody is old, slightly off-key, but unmistakable. The song. It moves through the room like smoke, through the house like a blessing. Soon, more voices join, not loudly, just enough, just softly. Even those who don't know the tune find themselves swaying to it, like a lullaby they've always known but never learned. And in that moment, with the storm rattling the roof and the candlelight dancing in every corner, something else sways with them, not seen, not named, but present. Later, after the wind dies, someone finds a single daisy on the chapel steps, out of season, perfect bloom. No one touches it, and so another season turns. Another year fades. Children become adults. Adults become memory. Houses shift. Fences fall. Roofs are mended. But the pit remains. The mural weathers. The path curves. The daisies rise. And beneath it all, your name breathes, not spoken, but heard, not remembered, but known, not feared, but followed. By now, you're not even legend, you're foundation. Not the beginning of the story, not the end of one, but the deep, quiet seam that holds all the others together. People in the village do not speak of you because they do not need to. You are in the way they open windows before storms, in the way they leave shoes at thresholds, in the hush that falls before the first frost. You are in the daisy drawn in chalk on the inn cellar door, the one repainted every time the rain scrubs it away. You are in the corner seat at the chapel that no one ever takes, even when the place is full. You are in the second bowl of soup always made but never claimed, set beside the hearth without comment. You are in the pauses between phrases, in the glances exchanged over things too sacred or sorrowful to say. You are not myth. You are not spirit. You are the unbroken rhythm of remembering that the village performs by accident, by instinct, by inheritance. And this autumn, the daisies bloom again out of season, defiantly golden. A child gathers them without knowing why. She carries them to the old well and drops them in one by one. For the person who waited, she says, no one taught her that phrase. Her mother hears it and stops mid-step, something tightening in her chest that she doesn't have a name for. She reaches out to brush her daughter's hair, then stops. Instead, she kneels, picks up the final daisy that rolled away, and tucks it into the stone lip of the well. It stays there all winter, down by the pit. The grass grows thinner this year, not dead, just sparse, like the land itself is taking a breath. A boy sits nearby and sketches in the dirt with a stick. He draws a house, then a bed, then a bird, then, carefully, he traces the curve of a daisy petal. He doesn't know what he's drawing. He's never seen the mural. It's been gone for years, but the shapes come to him anyway, as if passed down in the bones. When he's done, he looks up at the sky and says, still, just once, just to say it. Later that night, the wind stirs harder than it should. A window unlatches, a candle sputters, then steadies. A mother waking to check on her child finds him sleeping soundly, one hand curled around a dried flower. She kisses his head, adjusts his blanket, and thinks of a name she doesn't remember learning. Her grandmother used to hum a tune in the winter. It's on the edge of her mind now. She tries to sing it, but forgets the words. Just hums the rhythm, slow and low, like something inside her is finishing the lines for her. The priest walks the boundary paths more often now. He doesn't carry the old book. He doesn't recite the names. He just walks. Sometimes he places his hand on a stone, on a doorframe, on the chapel's side wall where the iron daisy still clings, rusting gently. Once, he stops and speaks aloud, not to anyone, just to the dusk. Still, he says, we still remember. Then he moves on. A bird follows him a while, then does not. The carpenter, now almost too old to lift his tools, begins carving a new bench. No one asked him to. No one knows where he found the wood. It's darker than usual, streaked with lines that resemble veins or roots. As he works, he hums the same phrase, over and over. It's not a tune, more like a sentence with no words. He doesn't hurry. He doesn't talk. When it's done, he places the bench beside the daisy field. No plaque, no decoration, just a seat facing the hill. The kind of place someone might rest when they are not quite ready to go home. One morning, a daisy grows through a knot in the wood. No one picks it. In spring, a scholar passes through, young, eager, sharp-eyed. He asks about the burial pit, about the song, about the wall. The villagers answer politely, vaguely. They've done this before. They know what scholars are looking for: documents, dates, causes. The scholar takes notes, sketches the layout of the square, asks if he can record a few lullabies. A girl sings him one. It's not a lullaby, really. Just a sound her grandmother used to hum. She sings it twice, softly. The scholar asks what it means. It doesn't mean. She replies. It listens. He writes that down, confused, then leaves. At the edge of the village, he stops and looks back. For a moment, he thinks he sees a daisy etched into the path itself, right where the road bends around the chapel. But when he steps closer, it's just a crack in the stone. He touches it anyway. The years pass again. The hill grows steeper, the daisies bloom longer, the pit grows quieter, deeper in the earth's memory, but none of it fades. Not really. It changes, but it doesn't leave. You remain beneath the floorboards of their rituals, behind the breath of their silences, in every hand that draws a daisy, in every window left slightly open, in every bowl placed for no one in particular. You have become the village's pause, their stillness, their proof that even silence can echo when listened to properly. And so, each evening, in one house or another, someone lights a candle, not for warmth, not for light, but for presence. They sit beside it, they hum, they wait, and they are not alone. Now, let the candlelight flicker low. Let the daisies fold into themselves, their petals soft with sleep. The pit rests beneath a blanket of grass and rain, untouched, untroubled. The air holds no weight tonight, only hush. The stories have been told, not to stir the past, but to settle it like dust in quiet corners, like ash in a hearth long cooled. Your breathing slows, your thoughts soften. You are no longer following the story. The story has followed you, curled up beside you, quiet, warm, still. The walls around you are not walls. They are memory, listening, holding. Outside, the wind moves gently now, no longer asking anything of you. You are part of it, part of the silence that protects, the rhythm that remembers. And as the night deepens and your eyes drift shut, one daisy opens somewhere. No reason, no season, just because something in the earth still listens.